Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to 2.5 Talent. We've kept to the schedule. We said we'd try and do this every 2 weeks. It has been 2 weeks, so I mean, at least a virtual pat on the back is deserved for us because it's a pretty solid effort. We're going to kickstart things straight away, but thank you for joining us. And of course, once again, if you're new to here, make sure to subscribe, like all the good stuff. You know, the classic YouTuber. Whatever. Right, let's talk about what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. Trav, I'll let you take the floor to kickstart things. Paladin, follow him up, and I'll finish it off. What have you got to for the last 2 weeks?
Okay.
What have you been working on, etc.?
I've been having quite a lot of fun. I've had quite a few exciting casts as well. I covered quite a lot of the ESL Challenger Rotterdam bracket and got to see Eternal Fire's run basically through the lower the entire way. I mean, they lost to 1 win in the upper bracket, then they beat I think 4 teams in a row, and with the loss of just 1 map, I think to Sprout it was the only team they lost a map to. And those results are pretty impressive for them to qualify for Rotterdam. And then I had the great fortune of doing a concurrent day for Pro League, my first ever Pro League cast. Very proud of that. Very proud of that. I was very happy to get to go that one. Scriv, the legend, helped me along with that one. And I did Eternal Fire versus Movistar Riders. It wasn't a dead rubber as well, which I was pretty happy about. Those final group games can often be a dead rubber. But Eternal Fire needed a 2-0. They got the 2-0, but unfortunately Cloud9 couldn't beat Liquid. That was the only way they would have qualified for playoffs. So it was in the end in vain, but still it was very fun.
Well, is that S tier on Wikipedia? It is, right? Like,
it is, yeah.
Oh, you're lucky, man. Now, whenever anyone clicks on your profile, it's like the first one, slap bang, S tier.
Well, yeah, it'll be up there at some point when it updates properly. Yeah, exactly. I hope anyway.
Love to see it. Love to see it. Pardon, what have you been up to?
I'm not gonna say that I've done what Trav has done and done Pro League games, but I've done something just as good, ECL with NA. So I mean, I think that is just right the cream of the crop. But no, seriously, it is super exciting to do ECL. I've been doing a lot of other stuff previously, like with the Relog guys and Elisa and whatnot. And you know, if we're talking about consistent work, ECL is obviously the name of the game, and so. Met some great people. The NA region is filled with some very exciting talent, and hopefully 2023 will be the year where we get to see a lot more of that talent because I think our region's got a lot to give.
You did have some washing machine related incidents over towards ECL as well. What
I've been trying to work with a producer for a while, and first time around, this guy's washing machine basically like exploded, and it didn't explode, but that is the story that I say because it is just that much funnier. And basically, like his house like had a lot of water just like flooding his place, and he couldn't cast he couldn't produce, and so that was just a huge bummer. But you know, we live and we learn. We learn
at the office
a lot. Yeah.
At least you were on time. You turned up though. That's what matters. I guess. Okay, what have I been up to? Last couple of weeks, I guess. Pretty much straight after we did our podcast, I did Not Out Here's podcast for the first time, which was pretty good. And I wiped the floor with everybody. I had to show him what's what. He's an absolute sumptuous W over there. Even though, credit to Frog, in fact, he predicted like most of the Pro League groups like spot on. Even though he wasn't even in that stage, he like got, especially Group C where it was like a mess, like Mouse and all over the place. He predicted it perfectly, all 6 in a row, like in the right order. So credit to him. Like we were kind of guessing about how that was going to go. So fair play. I did Rotterdam as well. I did 1 day on Rotterdam. I actually can't remember who I did now. It was so long ago. But it was about 11, 12 days ago. But I did a day on Rotterdam. I had a couple of best of 3s, which was pretty good. Did some ECL as well. Did Challenger League Asia, which was Challenger League Asia is always quite fun because it's always one good team versus one abhorrently bad team. So it's always just like a mess. And it was Lin Visions. They just farmed. Like, it was Lin Vision versus the Mongols, who is like, I think 1 or 2 of them are ex-D13, who that team from Mongolia, who were like, for a while okay in Tier 2, and then they were no longer boot camping here, so they've kind of just gone off. I think they disbanded, now they're back again into a Challenger League, because they made it through Open, or something like that. But, all things considered, it was a complete stomp. I think the Mongols maybe got like 6 rounds across both maps, so it was good fun just the Lin Vision farm. I gotta say though, I'm a big fan of Starry. I think he's someone who, like, obviously, he had that ace against G2 and everyone spoke about him, but the guy's got it, man. He's a seriously talented dude. And then aside from that, I've done a bit of Elisa today and yesterday, and I've got 2 more days afterwards. Of course, bear in mind, it's the 27th, that was the day of recording. And I just watched Sprout B&E this morning. Good game that was. 2-1, went the whole distance, and then just watched Eyeballers versus Dynamo Eclot, which I'll come back to in a little bit more detail later. But yeah, not as good of a game. But credit to Dynamo Eclot, very decent side. I've been impressed with them. And then aside from that, I've done quite a few interviews for the channel. Some of them are already up. Some of them are coming up in the next few days. But yeah, that's basically what I'll be working on. So been fairly busy-ish, to be fair. So not too bad. Not quite Pro League level, but busy-ish all the way. We can more or less go straight into kind of the talking points. Paladin, you kickstart us with your segment. I'll get it up on the screen for all of us to take a look through. But playoff brackets, talk us through it.
Yeah, we're in a very exciting period of CS as of right now. I thought that the group stage got better as it went along. Group C and D were probably the more competitive ones. Group D, we expected things to shape out in a certain way, and while that did happen, the way we got there was pretty exciting. And it kind of like flexed how the format can look good if everything aligns itself. But at the end of the day, we've got a pretty interesting bracket. We can go ahead and put it up. I believe it's already up, right?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Yeah, and basically, I think we've got some very exciting segments. Like I think the heroic Navi G2 bracket segment is really cool. The potential that you would have a G2 Vitality like rematch this early on in the season. They've already played themselves twice in the Blast groups, having a third rematch basically to kind of break the tie of who the better international team is right now would be super exciting. But obviously, you have the potential of a Navi phase final to potentially stop FaZe from getting the Grand Slam. You have the rematch of Dallas with FaZe at C9 in the quarterfinals potentially. You've got Liquid with a chance to go deep and then try to compete against an S tier team finally. And then obviously you still have some of these fringe teams that can potentially compete. You know, your Maos, your Furious, your Outsiders, maybe even your Heroic. So I think it's got a little bit of everything. It's got some good narratives that we can build off of last season. We've got some outsiding teams that have like competed and gone through some changes throughout the player break and are trying to look to see if they can join back with the elite again. And this will set the scene very well for the RMRs. I mean, like whoever can make a deep run here will definitely have enough confidence to kind of take it all the way when we get down to Malta again in a week's time.
Question is, right, I'll set this up for both of you because we didn't even plan this, but I just thought about it now. Paladin, this is your segment, so you can kind of, you can take first stab at it. Give me the run through the bracket. Give me, predict each step of the way, who's taking on who, and essentially, of course, predict how this one's going to run out. I want you to go kind of, from phase complexity, go along the playoff round one, then quarters onwards. Give me the runs.
So it's I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, but I don't think that my bracket will be correct. I straight up think just preemptively that there will be an upset in the quarters. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I think I can pretty safely predict the playoff round one matchups. But even then, I will be surprised if I'm just completely wrong. I think FaZe will win. I think Liquid will eke out a win against Fnatic. They're playing as we are actually recording.
Yes,
they're up a map. They're tied 1-1 on Overpass currently. If that series goes to 3, who knows? Maybe Liquid don't even win that. But I think I have enough faith in them to win. I think Navi still has what it takes to Heroic. You'd be a madman to bet against Navi in any sort of situation. Regardless of what you saw at their group stage, they turn into a different team when they're in the playoffs. And I think that they still have the capabilities to take down Heroic. I think they were a bit too shaky for my liking to say that Heroic could take like that underdog win. Fury Outsiders is probably the most competitive series of the initial playoff games. I'm gonna just go with Outsiders here. The only reason why is I think they could have actually had an even better result than they had in Group B. They were really close to beating FaZe. They lost to G2, but that was kind of expected given the momentum that G2 had throughout that tournament. So I'm gonna go Outsiders there. That's gonna be a really close one, I think. And then Then I have to predict C9 FaZe. I think FaZe just has a very solid mental edge over C9. If C9 played any other top team, maybe they could eke out a win. But I think there's some mental block in their head that they kind of broke at Dallas, but I need to see it actually happen again. I actually think Mouse is gonna beat Liquid. Just because I think the individuals are better. As of right now, they're like more on point right now. And I think that was just going to overwhelm Liquid when you don't have OC online, when you have Allegiance in some compromised positions, and you basically have to rely on Naf and Yekindar to perform.
For sure.
I think Navi will beat G2. Again, I don't think that G2 has proven to me enough that they can still compete in playoff situations. I think playoffs is probably the most is the reason why G2 go through all these changes. They want to compete in these playoffs. So if G2 actually win this game, hey, well, we can start to put them in the contender status to actually win titles. But I'm just gonna go with the safe bet here. Say Navi wins. I think Vitality will win regardless. Whoever comes in through the playoff bracket. I think Spinks is an absolute revelation. He's been very exciting to watch. I think even though their communication is still wishy-washy, Spinks is just so good pound for pound compared to Masuta that they kind of just win everything. In head-to-head aim duel. So then what we got a FaZe Mouse bracket in the semis. I think FaZe easily takes that. And then we'll got Navi Vitality. I think that could be a very, very exciting one. But the analyst in me wants an absolute rematch for contending whether or not FaZe actually gets the Grand Slam final. So I think it'll be a FaZe Navi final. I'm seeing a lot of people say Navi actually wins the rematch, but I'm going to say FaZe take the Grand Slam in a thrilling 5-map affair as one of the greatest rivalries of CS potentially ever.
Okay, well, Trav, you'll go following on that.
I can't really follow that, can I? Because Paladin's just absolutely nailed that entire segment. I've got to say that was brilliant. I don't disagree with much. I'm going to take FaZe over Complexity. I'm going to take. I'm actually going to be a little bit cheeky and try and now that he's gone through all his reasonings, I'm going to maybe take a few different teams. So I'm going to take Fnatic over Liquid.
Okay.
I think Fnatic can take Overpass. Mezzy has always been a really good player on Overpass individually, and if he's leading, it might make him fall off a little bit, but I still think that's a great map that can come through. They're currently 3-1 up as we speak. And with Ancient as a decider, I think that could genuinely go either way. This Fnatic team really excites me as a team that could, with how close the sort of 3rd to 10th level is in HLTV at the moment, I think they can easily get to somewhere like 6th or 5th if they have a good run somewhere. For Heroic Navi, I'll take Navi. For Fury Outsiders, I'll take Furia. Then for the quarterfinals, I think I agree that FaZe will beat Cloud9. I'm going to take Mouse to beat Fnatic, I think. I think Mouse, just as Paladin said, are a little bit more reliable in their individuals at the moment. Fnatic are occasionally will have one of their stars fall off a little bit, which hurts them quite significantly. And that's why another reason why I picked them to beat Liquid, because they, as Paladin said, they put, especially on Inferno, we were talking about with each other earlier, that Alicia's in on the A-bomb site, Alicia's in quite in his normal anchor role, he's in quite a sort of hard position to play, to even go 1-for-1, quite a compromised angle, and relies a lot on Naf playing pit well, which he does. But yeah, in the end they ground that one out. But still, it's a worry for them, I think, going forward. We'll have to look at that one. So I think they're going to take that. I think, as I said, Maz are going to beat Fnatic in that quarterfinal. G2 versus Navi. I really want to pick G2, but I'll take Navi. Vitality, Fury, I said, didn't I? So I think Vitality take that. So then we have Cloud9, or FaZe, versus Mouse. That just has to be FaZe. Then we have Navi versus Vitality. As I said, again, could be, that's the one that could go either way. Could be a banger. I'll take Navi. And we all just, ends off to what Paladin says. The pundit and the caster and the excitement wants me to see the FaZe Navi final again, and to see an Intel Grand Slam one. And I will actually agree with Paladin on that one, that I think FaZe they're gonna have now cement an era. They're gonna cement the era. It'll be cemented with IEM Rio if they somehow manage to win that. But I think they're gonna take Pro League this season.
All right. Well, I'm gonna follow up. I'm gonna go for some slightly roguer picks, just to kind of spice it up. And
of course you would.
I love a prediction here and there. FaZe Complexity, that's obviously going towards FaZe. When I say, Complexity, they're not scraping the surface. Let's be perfectly honest here. Fnatic Liquid, I want to go Liquid, which is, I know that might surprise you too, because there's a certain scene I don't rate it too highly, and I actually think Liquid actually will take that one. As much as it hurts my boy Mezzy, I do actually think Liquid are at the moment. I was saying this to Trav just kind of before we started. I really like this Fnatic roster. I like the individuals. I like the team. I like everything. I just think they haven't got enough reps under their belt just yet. I think they're really on the road to becoming one of those good teams with kind of what the individuals they've got, the work they put it in. I'm not fully convinced just yet that they're kind of in that S tier level in terms of consistently. But I think Liquid will take that. Heroic Na'Vi, I'm going to go Na'Vi. I think it's pretty standard one for me. Fury Outsiders, I'm going to go, again, to Outsiders. Pretty standard, right? But then it goes into the next stage. FaZe Cloud9, again, FaZe, I can't really see a world in which they don't make it to the finals, to be perfectly honest. They just got quite a nice run all the way. C9 is the only team that's ever really going to face them. That's going to be, maybe, you know, a problem, but aside from that, I don't think any of the teams on their side of the bracket are even going to scrape the surface, to be perfectly honest. But I do think they'll take down Cloud9. I think they'll run all the way to the final. It doesn't matter who they play against. Then it's Mouse Liquid. Again, I'm going to go with Liquid again for this one. I'm going to go Liquid to take down Mouse. As much as I like the youngsters of Mouse, I'm just going to lean on the experience of Liquid in terms of kind of, you know, Legion, Nav stepping up, Nitro having a decent performance. I'm just going to lean on the off chance that they somehow pull out something out of the bag. I take down Miles, of course. Then they'll face off against FaZe in the semis, and they'll get wiped. Classic.
Absolutely.
G2 Na'Vi. I'm gonna go G2. I'm gonna go G2 take it because I think Moldgate's gonna have simple molding, and he's not gonna be on his game. He's gonna be off form. He's not gonna be feeling it. Manessi's gonna get in his head and like be like, "Woo, ants," and he'll shit the bed. Basically, that's the plan. That's the plan.
That's where Simple gets you, man. When he's mad though.
True, actually.
Dude, this guy has a chip. He feels like everyone's out to get him, and then he plays like a demon in the server.
With a vendetta.
So I'm gonna say Moldgate's gonna make him better.
Well, Moldgate's gonna infuriate. We'll come back to Moldgate in a little bit more detail later, but I think Moldgate's gonna have Simple rattled. And then the rest of the team are just gonna be so scared. They're gonna be like, "Oh no, like, let's not piss him off. Let's just stay quiet. Not gonna calm." And then Ball's gonna capitulate. This is my genius here. So G2 take down Na'Vi. Vitality will take down Outsiders. I agree with you, Paladin. You're pretty much spot on. I feel like Spinks, like pound for pound, is just, you know, really up the level here for Vitality. And I saw a couple of their comms from Blast, and they were a little bit hectic, but all things considered, I think they've got a pretty decent thing going there. So I'm excited to see what they bring. And then it would be G2 Vitality. I think. Ooh, tough on it. I'm just gonna go with G2. I'm gonna go G2 to win that one out. And then go G2 FaZe.
They lose in the final again.
Yeah, and then FaZe win it out. That's the plan. So that's my run. So G2
G03 returns.
Yeah, G03, and then G2 lose in the final again. And I don't think I'm gonna lean on the other side. It's like a 3-1. Like it's not even like close kind of thing. Like it's just pretty standard. Like boom boom FaZe. Simple.
Oh, you think G2 gets a map?
Yeah. I think they sneak a map somehow. Like sneak one somewhere, and you're like, okay, all right. Like people on Twitter are like, hang on a second, G2 finally gonna get him. Yeah. Absolutely rolled. Like Twist comes on some demonic form with his new Valorant hairstyle, and he just comes out of nowhere. I don't know if you've seen.
I have
seen his absolute shocking lid there.
He looks like that MP9 skin with the unicorn.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's a shocking trim. It looks like Reyna from Valorant. Honestly, it's like the purple hair. I don't know what the thought process was there. But yeah, shocking trim. That's the run through I'm going with. I don't know. Gotcha. I don't know. Slightly rogue picks there, but I'm actually very interested. I'm going to be hard focused on Na'Vi just because I want to see what side of Simple we get. Do we get Moldgate Simple who farms, or Moldgate Simple who has, you know, an absolute disaster class?
I think the bottom half of the bracket could genuinely go in like so many different combinations. Like there could be so many different things that happen, and I think no matter what the combination we get, I think it's still going to be exciting. Like I think all of the games that we get are going to be close on that side, because the problem is that all these teams are shaky right now. There isn't like a team that you can like 100% bank on after you watch them in Pro League and say these teams are just going to fly through. I mean, obviously you can argue that, you know, G2 Vitality, they both went pretty much flawless, but inherently the communication on those teams and just the nature of when these moves happen, you still have to say like, oh, at any moment these teams can just capitulate. But that also makes exciting CS. So I think that we'll still get really competitive series, because there will be those sparks where these teams just like alight themselves and they look really competitive for like at least a map or two here and there. So I think that we'll have a really competitive. I think I'm looking forward to that bottom half a little bit more than the top half.
I think the top half writes itself pretty comfortably, because even whoever wins out of kind of that 3 of Fnatic, Liquid, Miles, they're not going to do anything, are they? Let's be honest. They're just not on that level at all. One thing that we didn't really consider too much about, but there is, as much as it annoys me, there's a world and a possibility in which Heroic actually pull off an upset. And as much as that pisses me off, because I don't like Heroic, there's definitely a world in which that happens, and you know, they pull off an upset. It's not sort of uncommon by any sense, but I think it's obviously definitely the sort of underdog story for them. But with kind of how tumultuous at times Na'Vi have been, there's definitely kind of a conversation to be had there where potentially it's just one of those days where we just don't see them show up. We saw it a couple of times. We saw it at Antwerp, for example, where they just don't show up occasionally. We saw it in the groups as well. It wasn't definitive by any means from Na'Vi in the group. So there's still definitely a conversation for me where Heroic have the edge in a sense of that the run of form of Na'Vi is all over the place.
Yeah, I think the Heroic factor is a weird one, because I said when we spoke about Pro League in our previous pod, I think, so I don't trust in Heroic at all.
Yeah.
And they kind of surprised me a little bit with how they managed to perform to get through. There was a few matches where I think they overperformed a little bit, but we all know the pattern with Heroic in playoffs. It doesn't usually work out for them, does it? Even if the crowd's tiny. So, yeah, I don't know. I still don't trust in them. I think they're inconsistent at the moment, even though I thought that Yabi was still the perfect move, to be fair. I think the time they've taken to really ramp up to get to this level to make playoffs again has surprised me. But they could, as you say, I really think you never know which Na'Vi is going to turn up. We all know the classic Na'Vi story is that the first game in a tournament, they can be a bit slow to start, even with the newer roster. The older roster did the same, the new roster does the same. It depends. I'm not sure if they've cancelled out that sort of stereotype about them now, but I still think it's going to be a close one.
To me, the thing about Heroic is that even though they won 4 series in a row, none of them were clean. I don't think that there was or actually beyond the complexity series. For some reason, Heroic plays very well against any teams, but beyond that, right? I think that the fact that they got blown out of the server by Mouse is already like a super concerning thing to me. And then they had this just like close game against Heat, and then the game against Astralis, I personally don't even think they should have won it. They won it off of like a final force buy on the T side of Nuke, and they got a couple very, very like lucky Tech 9 shots. I'm saying lucky just because I'm not buying into this Heroic project personally. And I think that they also have like this huge mental block against Na'Vi as well. Like that when I think about Phase C9, that's a big one, and Na'Vi Heroic is another huge one that Heroic just can't break. The last time I believe that there was a actual win from Heroic in a best of 3 was in the Europe RMR, when that basically did matter. I believe it was a 2-0 qualifying stage match. Kind of irrelevant, but everything else was by far in Na'Vi's favor. A lot of single-digit maps, and it just wasn't close. So I don't have any expectations from Heroic in this playoff game. However, that being said, they also look the most mortal right now, Na'Vi. So I think that is why you can kind of argue, but like the history suggests that there isn't any room for Heroic to get back into this.
Yeah, I'm just banking on the fact that Na'Vi maybe don't show up because their groups are weak. But, you know, we've spoken about sort of one Danish team. Let's speak about one that didn't qualify, Astralis, and of course recent news for them. Where do we start here? Config. I'll just read the title for you, ladies and gentlemen. This was released by Jackson. Of course, it's a questionable news source, but hey-ho. Breaking. According to sources, Astralis is set to remove Config after a fistfight in Malta. Now, so I heard this 3 days ago after they were recording from, I guess I can say a quote-unquote source I know, who told me about this. I didn't believe them. And they said this. They were like, so essentially what happened to me, this is in Malta. They're at a club, is what I was told, and Config and an ESL employee had an altercation. They were kind of having an argument. I'm not actually too sure what the details of the argument were. I don't think they even knew. And they were having an argument, and it ended up in Config just battering this ESL employee, which is what I was told. Just genuinely like fucking him up, like big time. Like not even So Config, responded saying, this isn't true. I guess I can get the tweet up as well.
I can read it as well. Like, so Jackson contacted me with rumors that are mostly BS. I asked them to respect it as private. Of course, they went ahead anyway and even added to the story. So I asked them not to contact me again. It hurts like hell, but I hope to get green light from the doctor so I can get back soon. And this tweet is quite possibly the worst idea he could possibly have done. To say mostly BS says, yes, I did something, and some of it's true. And for any of it to be true is horrible.
Basically,
plainly horrible.
I think AZS tweeted this, which I loved. AZS was like, so basically, he's just confirmed that he fucked someone up, but, you know, the way in which he did it, the way in which he absolutely battered this person isn't true, but he did do it. He just does, just the way that Jackson said it, not quite true. It wasn't a left hook,
Terrible
it was a right
idea.
uppercut. Come on now, Jackson. Get your source, your facts right. Like, it's just
I guess idiotic. You can't deny it, right? You can't deny it if it's true, but if that's the case, you don't bloody well tweet about it. Just put your fucking phone down. Carlos R could have learnt from that, for God's sake. Like, come on, guys.
What's it called,
please put your phone down.
In America, what do they call it when you abstain from speaking? Is it your Fifth Amendment? Is that one?
Your First Amendment.
First Amendment. There we go. See, I'm not First Amendment. Yeah.
You're close. Yeah.
Just shut up, basically, because what he's done here, he's just come out and said like, oh yeah, so I did batter this ESL employee. Sorry, but it wasn't. They didn't get it right in the way I battered him. So Jackson, it's like you're in the wrong, mate. Like you're the one who's done. Jackson just got the information the same way I guess me or anyone else has heard of the story before it got released. But Jackson were the ones who released it. It was just like, oh my god, like. And then, sorry, like, the top comment here is a pretty good example, but, like, the rest of the comments are exactly the same. It's like, media respecting privacy? Never. And it was like, bro, why are you backing him? Like, he's not wrong. He's not, like, right here. Like, he is wrong. He just battered this guy. So, I don't know. I think this just sums up Astralis at the moment for me.
I think the biggest issue with something like this happening is, like, this guy has had previous issues of just things like this happening. I mean, originally when he was like in his absolute prime, you think about the opportunity that he had to actually join Astralis when instead of Magisk, it would have been Konfig instead of Magisk on that GOAT lineup. And the reason why he didn't make it in is because he was late to his interview, and when he actually came to the interview, he didn't give a good excuse, or I believe he made up excuses and he didn't actually like pass the interview or whatnot, and Magisk did, and he took his spot. And all of these like a lot of these kinds of similar things, he had attitude issues when he played on his previous teams. I mean, you think about some of the stuff that he did with North, some of the stuff that he did with Optic. Like it was never like he was always this loose cannon. And although that he had so much potential in his game, he was never able to get everything else figured out. And it kind of felt like after he had that Thorn tweet, that Thorn article that came out, and Konfig kind of said, look, I'm like ready to like, I'm hungry to like right my wrongs. And he came to Complexity. He looked very good. And then he moved on over to Astralis, and it looked like we've kind of passed that point of a like legacy. But that isn't the case. And I'm really upset that this happened, and like this kind of trend of behavior is continuing, because there is a potential for this guy to do some incredible things for the game. Like I genuinely think that he is one of the highest skilled players that our game has ever had. But the problem is that if you have things like this happening, interfering with how you play the game, you are now basically jeopardizing an entire organization, one of the organizations, the premier organizations in CSGO, from missing the actual major, because at this point you are now playing with essentially nobody. I'm no hate to Mister, but like he is not a Konfig. And one of the huge reliances that you need as a team is that guy to open up the rounds. You've had a huge problem with your system, and the only person that you can truly rely on is Konfig to get you openers.
Exactly.
And if you're thinking that Mister is going to do that for you, buddy, you're in for a rough surprise. Like it's going to be a tough RMR for them, and you've basically jeopardized that entire thing by getting into that altercation. And I'm somehow not surprised that this is the way he got this ankle fracture. But at the same time, I'm just bummed that we have to be in this position in the first place.
I agree. I'm disappointed as well, because it's one of those you always talk about in other sports as well, players who never lived up to their talent in terms of achievements. Konfig has lived up to his talent in terms of numbers, but not of trophies, and that's the big factor with him. So it's a shame. I agree, it's a shame, but also for him to be in an altercation with anyone is bad, but to be in an altercation with an ESL employee of all people, the man who's the people who are helping run the event that you may give yourself a name in Counter-Strike history is even worse, I think, for me. Like, I would love to know what that was about. To be a fly on the wall in that situation would have been unbelievable. I mean, obviously there are lots of people who probably know exactly what's happened from the team and people who are there on the day, but still, like, the whole thing's just a nightmare, and I think he can only be disappointed in himself as well for all of this because he had those injuries as well, which weren't even related to this. I mean, for him to fracture his ankle in this sort of altercation, if that's actually how it happened.
Yeah.
That just sounds like an act of God at that point.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
seriously.
It's like something stopping him somewhere, like it's horrible.
So kind of what I took away from it as well. You look towards Astralis. I was like, okay. It's like, for example, when I saw like Config's, Config injured his ankle, so he won't play in the RMR. It's like, he's injured his ankle. He doesn't play with his feet. Who cares? Like, what? I didn't get it for ages. I was like, there's got to be something else. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Because like, even if you injure, like I've hurt myself in ways like that, and it's like you can still travel with pretty much any injury basically. So it's not like it's a traveling issue. Medication's not going to affect him or anything like that. So it's like, okay, like what's the reason? There's got to be something else. And I was like waiting for it, and then when I got told, I was like, do you know, credits to Astralis. They tried to cover it. They tried to sneak.
Nothing is hidden. Nothing gets hidden from the Counter-Strike scene. It all comes out eventually.
You cheeky devils! Tried to sneak one by. I already knew something was fishy when I saw, he's injured his ankle, so he won't be playing the RMR. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, just put him on crutches. He can sit down. He'll be fine. Like, it doesn't make sense. Not affecting his hands.
What was the excuse that the doctors used? Something like he can't sit up straight for long periods of time or something. Maybe. I mean, that's actually reasonable because my mother had a problem with her ankle years and years ago, and she was told she had to elevate it. You have to elevate your foot to get it to heal, and not have it pointing downward. Yeah, so like that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if that's true, and one of the big reasons why he couldn't make it. But yeah, as you say, it just reeked of there being something more to the story, and I think we figured it out. So
yeah, but the thing, it has, Paladin, you're spot on. It has like kind of further implications though, because it doesn't, we'll talk about here. I can talk about him in a minute, but it has a massive effect for Astralis because they're now bringing in this youngster, Mister, who's like, he's like 17, isn't he? And he's like, even in Astralis, I'm not being funny. He got like a 0.95 rating in the We Play Academy League. It's not exactly.
They've given away the best parts of Astralis talent away. Like, they're playing on other teams, and this is basically the next talent that you have. But as you're saying, I don't think he's very good. To
be fair, I actually reached out to Mister to kind of speak to him to see if I can interview him before the RMR, but Astralis kept him on the locks basically. I had no chance essentially. But when I spoke to him, like just him, he seems like the loveliest dude. He was like saying like, he's like grinding basically, just like working really hard, and he obviously like wants to make an impression because he's got a lot to live up to. But yeah, like no offense to him, but he's obviously nowhere near the caliber of Config. His performances as a We Play haven't been great. He's been there since like August 2021, I'm pretty sure, and it's just like not really been fantastic. The general sense from him, he's not even comparable to kind of what we expect from Config to the numbers and impacting towards the server. So I think Astralis is in a really rough space as well, because especially when Astralis now are looking kind of arguably weaker than ever, to be perfectly honest. They've just got considerably weaker because their shining star, one of the few shining stars in this roster, is no longer there. Everyone keeps talking about how it's Farling and Zipnex have both been dog, and they're just kind of letting this side down, and it's just like they're not going to find anything, and that's including Config. Now they don't have Config, and they got this kid coming in who's not tested at tier 1 at all, who will get rolled and smoked by any decent tier 1, tier 1.5 team. Honestly, a tier 4 CIS PUG team would actually farm him as well. So it's going to be a rough time in that RMR. Like, as much as Astralis had, in my opinion, no chance of making it through anyway, I now think they don't have a chance at all. I can't see a world or a possibility where Astralis make it through the RMR.
I still think they make it.
Do you really?
I don't know why. I do think they still make it. Legacy. I mean, I'm the first person to dislike Astralis, to be fair. I mean, after what they did to my favourite team, VP, back in the day, that's one of the main reasons I hate them. But that's the main point about it is I don't know why I still think they'll make it, but I just think that there'll be something. I think they'll get a 2-2 game or something, and they'll scrape through, something like that. I don't know. It's not going to be easy, but they'll make it.
Yeah. I think for me, the other side of things, because it affects a team. We know about that. It's gonna have problems with the RMR if they make it through. If they make it through, credit to them actually. I have a lot more respect for Astralis as an organization if they somehow manage to squeeze their way past this RMR, because I think with kind of the form that they're bringing in, it's not looking too great. But I think on a kind of a more damper note, for Konfig, this kind of have major implications to his career, like really long term. Because these reputations, they don't leave. They don't go away. You'll always be remembered for this. And if this is true, what everything comes out as being said, and there will be a point now, of course, since it's been released, that ESL or Astralis or Konfig individually have to make a statement about what actually happened. And we get, the full facts and the full story. There's going to be real big issues there if this is actually true. Because for Konfig, this could be career ruining. As much as, it doesn't affect us in-game at all, no one wants to take the brand risk of this guy who's just like a moron who can't control his anger because he got knocked out of Pro League groups, so he just fights an employee. It's like, no matter what happened, you're the professional, you're the one setting the role. And the same thing we see, kind of with football, for example, or any sports stars, when they have the same thing, they always get in a lot of trouble, a lot of attention, and it has a massive effects in their career because, they are becoming a brand risk. And with how important brand is to a lot of the, just esports in general, I guess, organizations, people might not want to take risks on them anymore, especially if, Astralis, if he gets benched and then they shift him on elsewhere. No big team's going to want to take the risk, even though he's a great player. I mean, we've seen this, for example, for Smuya. Like, he's so toxic and he's so, generally, like, his reputation is so bad that I'd still say he's like a top 15 AWPer in the world, basically. His ability's unbelievable, but he's a prick. So no one wants to take, no one wants the risk on him because
we'll get on to Benched Heroes.
Yeah,
the Benched Heroes story. We'll get on to
brand risk, basically. But yeah, we'll move on to Trav, you do have a little clip for us.
I've got a clip.
Yeah,
yes, I do. This is my classic clip of the week, right? And considering we're on the topic of Konfig, I thought of this clip because of the commentary being so appropriate and relevant to the story that happened today. It's one of the classic ones from ELEAGUE 2017. When if you just look at the rosters when you see the clip come in.
Yeah. I'll get it up for us now. We've got
okay.
So for those who don't, this is Konfig Knife Kill versus Gods at ELEAGUE with Twitch chat, which I think is a great addition, I've got to say, because Twitch chat, 300 IQ. But yeah.
So far, looking for the next frag.
So he's lined up with Magisk. He'll go down, but Magisk finds one. He's still got room to work. Lekros burned, caged in alive. That's the AWP player down. So if Flusha can pick up this kill, they're trying to pinch shot at Magisk. It does open up the site, and Snyder's going to do it instead by wrapping around. They'll go for the default plant just in time. 5 seconds when he gets it onto the plant and onto the line. 1 HP versus 2. There's 3 HP between 2 players left in a 1 versus 1 post-plant overtime of an elimination match, and Konfig might get the upper hand. Take your time. Take your time. Add insult to injury in overtime. That is bold.
Why would you do that?
That is
Don't
bold.
knife people. If he had messed that up, can you imagine how upset his whole team would be? It's not worth
I think this clip is perfect, Trav, because I mean it summates his entire personality and what it can bring. It can bring a lot to the server. Don't get me wrong. Like having that kind of attitude to the game completely shifts how you have to approach it as an opponent. Like how you. Like, you can't necessarily prepare for Konfig in a lot of scenarios because stuff like this can happen. But we've also seen a lot of situations where things like this happen and it completely backfires on him. But that's what you get when you pick a guy like this, and it can really help your team. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword about Konfig, and that's why I've always loved watching him, because you never know what you're going to get from him. You could either get like a huge 40 bomb from him where every single entry hits. Yeah,
he's got the record, definitely. Was it 47 in regulation
something crazy like that, right? Yeah. And then there's other times where he has absolute stinkers because like he's got those really heavy duty entry rolls and he just doesn't win the fights. But that inconsistent style is really fun to watch, and when he gets into these scenarios, it's fun.
The clip makes me happy just in general because it's just like that's like a really underrated line, I think, from Sado and Henry as well. Just you could just feel, as a former player himself, right? You can feel the anger in Henry's voice when he casts that.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You know, it just makes me me smile because that was the perfect timing for that line. Perfect timing for that line. Absolutely perfect.
I think it's a good clip, but I think you mentioned the spot on that sums up Konfig. It's a player who can pull on unbelievable things to talent, but he's a wild card, essentially. You don't know what you're getting with Konfig, and that's in and out of the server now, of course, and especially certified with what we've seen recently. I think Konfig's great. I really hope. As much as I actually, for his sake, I hope that the story about wherever the fight is, I hope it's just not true. I mean, I heard it prior to the Jackson article, so I wasn't surprised when I saw it. But I'm hoping it's not true, or the details are, I'm not saying it's justified, but maybe the ESL guy was just. I don't know. There's I can't even think of a world in which it's even justified, to be perfectly honest. But there really isn't. I was trying to play play devil advocate here, but there really isn't. If he's at a fist fight, then there's no saving grace. But I hope there's kind of some sort of saving grace for him in terms of if what he says is true, it's all BS. I mean, this is all speculation right now. This is literally as of was last night that the article got released, I think. So and the
I woke up to this and I was like, is it still a dream? Like, is it a nightmare? What is it?
So
I didn't understand.
Well, so the fight, I've got it here. So the fight, I got told about the fight. It happened apparently 3 days ago. Apparently.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, apparently about 3 to 4 days ago, or from what I've got. So yeah. Either way, I think it's not good if you're if you're Konfig. It's really it really can have some long-lasting effects. So we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. But I'm hoping for the best in terms of, But that's what you get with him. We're going to move on to another segment talking about what you get with certain people and their characters. G2. Now, this one, of course, spans across 2 games. Because, of course, this is... The bulk of this, of course, and the effects of it is from Valorant. And for those who don't know, I'll quickly update you kind of what happened. So... Valorant's just on franchising, happened all of about a week ago. Similar system towards League in terms of, but it's a little bit bigger. So there's 30 teams across 3 different regions, 10 from each region. 10 from the Americas, 10 from EU, 10 from Asia. And nice and simple. G2 were basically a shoo-in for franchising. They were going to go and get a franchising spot in NA. And they were going to pick up what was the XSET roster, who ended up finishing 5th, 6th overall at Champions recently. So top, 6th team in the world, basically, for G2. Very, very good pickup. They're a really good team. Anyway, so on the day before, teams started getting leaked, which they were kind of getting leaked here and here by like kind of George Geddes and Dot Esports, people like that, kind of doing these leaks of teams. Carlos celebrates some league something or other. So I don't know, one of you might know the details. Some league victory by going out and partying and recording it and posting it with Andrew Tate on Twitter. Like, so he posted a video of him, Andrew Tate and his brother. Apparently it was some league victory. I think like LEC something or other. They won something. But there's a few different things. One, we can all give our opinions, but the general thing about why it's quite ironic, especially because of League, is a week prior to this video being released, G2 signed a new female league team, and then their CEO, majority shareholder, all the best, is partying with literally like a known misogynist and like a alleged women abuser and trafficker and
it's
all
the
of
alleged
the rest.
word.
The alleged,
it's the alleged word, but anyone who has that sort of news around you stay away from. I think is the rule. I would say in most scenarios. I mean, I'll let you. I'll get onto my thoughts in a minute. I think you've got a few more to add.
Take away.
Okay, well, I don't know. For me, it's a tough one because obviously Carlos has done such great work with G2. Like, he's been with them for so long. He's originated this brand. He's been the face of the organization. He's the what makes G2 G2. Lots of people have said this already. He's an amazing leader of that organization. But realistically, while I don't like to see someone fall from grace this quickly, I really do think again, this is a subject which I didn't expect to have to talk about in the last few weeks, but it's just a fall from grace that he could have avoided. It's as simple as that. 1, I don't think you take your phone out at an after party. I think that's like a #1 rule. And if you do, you keep your camera and your clips to yourself and you don't post them on bloody Twitter. Another situation where social media's come back to bite a huge personality, right? So don't post it on Twitter. If you're going to party with these people, then do it, but then don't double down afterwards and say, oh, no one can police my friendships or who I party with. Like, even if you're lying to yourself, apologize publicly and say, oh, okay, I didn't know he was there. I'm sorry to socialize with this guy. I know he's a bad person. And then even when it all happened and he was, he took leave from G2 as CEO and all those things were announced by the organization itself, by the board, he still was, I'm pretty sure that he did have people like running his account at one point.
No, it was him.
It was only him.
Yeah.
It wasn't only him, but it was him as well.
Oh right, yeah.
It's definitely him, but they had, he had someone running his account in the past, and he also runs it himself, obviously. But yeah, he was liking tweets which basically said, "Oh, you're in the right. Like should do whatever you want." Everything which contradicted his statement and G2's statement. So he was. I think he was out of there. Whatever the case, I think it was obvious.
Yeah, I don't know. But Paladin, before I can voice my opinions, do you have anything your side?
I mean, I will say I'll start off with the bad. I think that whatever happened to him, it kind of like I think Trav hit a lot of the points as to what I was saying. Like I don't think you should ever like I felt like he was smart enough to know that he shouldn't be posting that ever.
Yeah.
Like especially when you're in that kind of position. The general consensus by most people in the world is that this guy is not a good person. And that if you are seen with him and you are involved with him, that is a bad thing. And if you want to post stuff like that and think people will not notice, that is a huge problem with being a CEO of a massive organization. So that in and of itself and like all the implications that happened that's a whole other can of worms. But I think the biggest issue with all of this is that it comes at such a terrible time. I mean, obviously, I don't think there would ever have been a good time for this to happen. But I mean, this guy has created basically one of the biggest organizations on esports planet. Because look, I don't think there's another organization like G2, one that is very tongue in cheek, one that is very willing
I love G2 personally.
To focus on content. To shit talk their players, do whatever it takes to win, bring out the big checks to buy the big players. No matter what the esport is, no matter where they are, they always want to win. This guy, whether you like him or hate him, whenever he attends these events, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Carlos maybe in context of the esport itself, not
of course.
outside of this. But basically, I think that, I mean, love him or hate him in that scenario, I think that he still brings such an exciting aspect to the game. You know, when you see him at those playoff situations and when he's in the event and he says like, yeah, we're going to win this series very easily. And then they fall in their place, they lose. Hey, you've now created another narrative. You've created another villain. And I don't think we have enough villains in CS. I talked about this on my NA podcast, but I don't think we have enough villains in the CS space anymore like we used to. We used to look to certain players and be like, oh, we want this team to lose. And you have an extra little bit of skin in the game. And Carlos really understood that about the game. He understood that there was an entertainment value to CS that a lot of orgs don't really tap into. They're kind of shy away from it. They don't really want anything to do with it, and it detracts from the game. And G2 always embraced that, and having that gone from the game is going to hit really hard because at this point, who knows what the future of G2 holds? Are they going to hold some of these players together? Are they going to pivot to a full national lineup? Are they going to have a situation where they turn into a Fnatic org where they kind of have to pick apart and get some lower tiered players rather than the big name players? Sure. Do they shirk away from creating content? Do they shirk away from shit talking and becoming basically a shell of their former selves? There's so many basically implications to how G2 is operated, owned, and basically how they look when we look at them in future tournaments, that it's very upsetting to me that at this point you don't want them to turn into another org, because there are a lot of fans that follow G2. There are a lot of fans that love G2 and they bring in such a big crowd. No matter where they play, they always get so many numbers. And if you basically fall away from that identity, it's going to be a huge problem, I think, for the scene as a whole. I think we'll be okay in terms of everything, but to me, it just feels like we lose that much more of a facet in how we approach esports.
I agree. I mean, I'll let you get on to what you think, Neo, but I think also just a tiny point to put on the end of it as well is that there's even a part of my brain that understands why people hate this, and they hate the cancel culture aspect of it. But again, realistically, it's not cancel culture. If a CEO loses your company a huge franchising slot due to his own error, you're going to get punished, and you're going to get it's going to be a huge issue, and you might even lose your job for it. And there you go, he's lost his job for it. So I don't know. I genuinely understand the people who are on Carlos's side and say, listen, it's your life. You should be able to do what you want. But I think there are lines, and unfortunately, he stepped over them.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of all hit the nail. I think kind of one of the important ones in terms of a CS sense is that for G2, their identity was Carlos. Carlos was the identity of G2. I mean, that is kind of how it's always been. It's his organization. He started it. He's always been the one in control. He's, you know, molded it and scoped it the way he wants it to be. And that's what made kind of Carlos, in a CSGO sense, so good, right? I mean, when you see him at majors, he was always like a guy. He was very notable, very funny. The content was brilliant. G2 was Carlos. And that's kind of what is kind of sad to see, is like losing him involved in the CSGO space, and especially kind of what he's tried to do in terms of international rosters, building these kind of super squads. It's always been something that kind of G2 have strived for, and they're such a legendary organization for that. But I think the decision, personally, is right. I mean, first of all, like what you said, Trav, about kind of cancel culture is spot on. If this isn't cancel culture, if you're, you know, trying to have a go at me or anyone on Twitter saying, oh, this is cancel culture, you're a moron. Shut up. It's not. It's called capitalism, you freaks. It's not cancel culture. It's literally called basic economics. He lost G2 $15 million a year, guaranteed from Riot. Like, you don't understand like how much money that is. And for every single one of G2's investors, they would have seen this guy, you know, at a party with some bold fraud and been like, hang on, he just lost us $15 million because he decided to post some dumb tweet, basically. But it wasn't actually the dumb tweet that cost him. If he did the dumb tweet of the video, and he came out like, I'm sorry, that was really stupid. I apologize. I'll take a bit of a break. I'll take a break. I'll step away. I'm sorry. Whatever. Fine. No, it's no one tells me the fuck I party with. That's where I draw the line. You're an idiot, Carlos. You actually are a moron, but yourself, because that's so stupid. Yeah.
A caveat to this is the fact that obviously we all know the story about Riot. I mean, we won't get into that for this podcast. We won't ever. This is completely off topic, but we all know they have their huge, you know, allegations around them and issues surrounding that company as well. So it was, you know, really kind of a hilarious situation.
Yeah,
the Riot people would reply to him on Twitter saying, you know, we're on, like, don't worry about it or whatever, and just stupid tweets going back and forth that aren't really what they think, I would assume.
Yeah.
And just trying to save face, and maybe Riot trying to look better by making this move, considering all the troubles they've had. But yeah, I think we can sort of end off this bit by saying it was dumb, and he's only got himself to blame.
Yeah,
simple as that.
If he didn't double down, he actually would have been fine. I think that's kind of what cost him, is a double down and liking tweets.
I mean, he tripled down on it, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think when he made that statement, I think that was the most brutal thing of all. It's like, okay, well, hey, look, it's Carlos. He likes to double down on things. It's fine. He's made out an apology. Maybe we can move forward from this. But then I think as soon as I started seeing the screenshots of his Twitter profile and like the liking tweets, the replying to these tweets, it's like, man, just again, we've talked about this a number of times, but put the phone down, man.
Exactly.
Like you've done what you've done. You needed to do. You're trying to repair the damage that you caused. Just leave it the fuck alone. Like it was just absolutely abysmal. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, you really only have yourself to blame. You've somehow still found a way to dig yourself out of the hole, and then you've jumped back into the hole and you've dug a little bit further.
6 feet deep, literally.
Yeah.
It's mainly the fact, though, of course, with this whole thing, in terms of him getting dropped as the CEO, because that's what everyone was saying, is like, you know, why is he getting fired for that? It's not that he's getting fired for that. It's that his investors, or the investors that pump in millions of dollars into G2 would have had a board meeting and been like, you're such a brand risk that you just cost us $50 million a year guaranteed out of Riot's pocket because you just were an idiot on Twitter. Like, that's what's happened here. It's just the fact that he's trying to double down and he's cost the investors money, which is why he's been dropped from his role. Of course, though, on the other side, I'm pretty sure he's still is the 85% shareholder of the company. So, you know, all things considered, it's not like he's going poor by any means. I wouldn't be feeling sorry for him. He's still more rich than any of us are ever going to be.
My friends were saying that as well. Like, realistically, I don't feel sorry for him. It's his own mistake, and he's rich, and he can probably move on to do whatever he wants.
85% of G2, I'm pretty sure. So he's going to be absolutely swimming in the cash. The only thing I did see recently was like people were tweeting. There was like an article released by someone was saying that Riot were trying to force G2 for him to sell his shares. That's literally illegal. That's not going to happen. You cannot. That's called manipulation. You can't do that. It's not allowed. So that's going to happen. But I think, you know, in the CS:GO sense, it doesn't have too much of an effect. Obviously, in Valorant, it had a major effect because they were guaranteed a spot in NA and they didn't get it. But hey ho, that is it, done dusted. Of course, we can move on to our next segments.
I've got. If you go for your segment right now, I actually have a minor household emergency that I have to attend to.
Perfect.
So I will be back in about 2-3 minutes. All right, don't worry about it.
Go for it. Minor household emergency. That sounds interesting. We'll let him get to that. So obviously, Paladin, I'm speaking directly to you, but this is my highlights and lowlights, and you know. I was going to do like certain highlights about, Pro League, I could talk about whatever, but I thought it'd actually better to focus on like, lowlights, because there's been quite a lot of lowlights, and lowlights are funny. So,
Yeah.
my lowlight I want to start with, and actually this one was added in as of literally today because of what I saw today in Elisa. My first one also was Eyeballers. I mean, you've got JW and Flusher, Supek, Svedyahead, and Shine, right? It's like these three youngsters who were like, they were for a long time the future of kind of Swedish CS. They were like the new generation, Svedyahead and Shine and Supek. Supek from Young Ninjas, Shine and Svedyahead. Svedyahead was from Lil Mix, and I can't actually remember where Shine was from. But these are these youngsters coming through, right? They were like these awesome talents who are like making a real good kind of movering in terms of pushing towards tier 1 in terms of grinding out the tier 2 scene, especially when you're under Young Ninjas as well. For Supek, he was really putting up some decent results there before they kind of changed how their Young Ninja system was working. And then of course you got JW Flusher. You got two of arguably the greatest ever players to touch Counter-Strike Global Offensive, teaching them, leading them across the line. You got those two. They're kind of flexing IGL, which is a bit rogue to me, but yeah, they have to be my first low light. I just think this Eyeballers project just keeps getting worse. I keep trying to give it chances as well because, JW and Flush are legends of the game. I actually thought for a long time that Supek and Svedya had a really good, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I didn't really know Shine before the Eyeballers project. But yeah, I just think the project keeps getting worse and worse. They got absolutely folded by Dino Eclot today. And fair to credit to Dino Eclot, I actually think they're a really decent team. They play some brilliant CSGO. I think a lot better than kind of their ranking states and their kind of respect states. I think they actually played some very good CSGO, to be perfectly honest. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Eyeballers, I'm getting seriously concerned with this roster because I'm from my understanding it is actually an org. It's no longer the mix of whatever it was before. So I just feel like
JW and Flushers, right?
Yeah. They're just like, it just feels like the paycheck stealing right now, to be perfectly honest, because that like they are the problem as well. As much as I hate to say it, I'd actually rather have Shine, Spec, and Svedyahead and bring in two of the Swedes, two of the youngsters, and start again. Do what Ecstatic did, or do what Lil Mix do with kind of these young Swedish guys and just get them grafted out, because JW and Flusher, they're just not it anymore. Today as well, especially, they were pretty poor, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, going by the Eyeballers games that I've had a chance of watching recently, the ones I've casted in ESEA Advanced, for example, they are just very, very hot and cold. I mean, I would agree with the fact that they're getting worse. Yeah. I wouldn't agree with the fact that the project is dying or dead. I still think they've got some time to try and work this through. Because what I've seen from Supek as a sort of a star player, I guess you could say, on this roster, is very good. Shine came from that Aura team that was at IM Fall last year.
Yeah.
Yep. And Svedyahead, I've seen him do some ridiculous things. Svedyahead, probably should be pronouncing the J as a Y as it's Swedish, but they've been very good, and Flusher and JW can occasionally have their roll back the ears moments. JW can have the flashiness with the AWP. I've noticed on Vertigo they play a rifle setup only, really, which is interesting as well. So they just stick to the M4s on CT side. Don't really go for the AWP on Vertigo. Flusher is just, you can just tell individually, whether it's the fact that I think maybe he's IGLing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so him and JW like flex IGLing, from what I've been told.
Right.
Like, Flusher's the majority of the IGLing, but then JW mid-round calls occasionally. So like they're using their experience as like a way to call, basically.
Yeah, okay. So it's a weird one, but as you can see, Flusher and JW are just not individually what they once were, and I think that does kind of hold them back sometimes. But I still think they have got more time to go than I think what your next team will say. Obviously, we'll give Paladin a thought on it before we move on. But I think they do have a lot more. But how much time? I do think they have more time than Xcade, for example, which we will get onto in a minute.
Yeah,
but Paladin, you can
see off Eyeballers.
Paladin, go ahead.
We can go on.
Yeah,
I think the core of this team is super exciting to watch. Supek, Shine, Svedyahead, they're a great core. I mean, Young Ninjas kind of bolstered them to be better players. Supek in particular, obviously. And I think that Shine looked decent on Aura. Like whatever open qualifier runs that they had, he did look very good for that team. But yeah, I think you guys are nailing it in the sense that Flusher and JW. I don't like when you try to flex IGL, and I don't think that you can harbor consistency from JW with the type of player that he's been across his career. He's always been a very I will take matters into my own hands, and I will take this individual decision or fight or play to kind of take over the round. And hey, that might have worked in way back when in Fnatic's heyday, but I think the game is very different right now, and you've got to have a certain individual level, just like fundamentally, to do the things you kind of do. And I don't think that you can call that for your entire team. I don't think that that works with these other 3 players. And then at the same time, if you have Flusher calling, I mean, then you're also negating his potential skill as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that he can also do a lot of good things when put into certain scenarios, and having to think for another team is also going to cause a huge concern. And I like the idea with trying to take, like, veterans and mixing it with young blood. We've seen it work before with Godsent. I think is probably the shining example of that. Sure. But at the same time, Taco was already a more supportive player on that team, on like the cores that he's been a part of, that he has the capabilities of doing that. He doesn't have to, he's already been thinking about the game in terms of in that way for a while. And now it's kind of taken that extra step to become an IGL. It's possible. You look at Apex, he's a bit more of a selfless IGL. He's played heavy entry roles. Sure. That, again, it's not very much like you need him to be fragging. You can have him think about the game at a more cerebral level, and it's possible. So I think that Flusher and JW, one of them has to go, and there needs to be a streamlined vision for the rest of this to work out. I don't think you can have 2 of them, because you can clearly see that they've been butting heads in the server. Yes, even if they're on the same page in terms of the organization, like their ideas and their philosophies of the game don't necessarily mesh well enough for this to work out long term.
Yeah, I think I was speaking to Ronnie, who, for those who don't know who Ronnie is, Ronnie's our lovely graphics dude. And he does like all the graphics that we have. He's a big fan of the eyeballers, and he was asking me kind of, what do I think's wrong with the project? And apart from saying, well, they are just playing shit, apart from that, it is also a case that, from what I've seen of eyeballers, I mean, so their playstyle as a whole, their macro sense of how they approach games, especially their T side, it's a super outdated meta, super outdated, old school style of trying to play CSGO. And it's very prevalent on their T side. It's like, relying on individuals to find multi-frags, and like playing off, just pure contact, no setup, no, there's never a game plan. You can just abundantly tell.
I've seen
there's
this.
Never a plan. Like they just
absolutely,
like it's like, honestly, it's like watching a face pug. It's ridiculous. Like something, like, especially today against Dynamo, for example. But it hasn't got any better, because I think the last time I cast him was about a month and a bit ago, and it still really wasn't that much better. But
yeah,
it's this idea where you can definitely say the core was just like, right, lads, let's just go B, all right, and then that's it. Like they just go B. Like there's no like at the very most they're pushing the boat out. Let's say so at overpass today, for example, so many times on T side. Bearing in mind it was like 12-3. They got 3 rounds of T side, and 2 of them with a pistol and the force by afterwards. It was brutal to watch. But it was like their T side rounds were, let's go B, and at the most they send like, Sapek into short water, and the rest of them are just like contact out monster, and they just get mowed down. Like it was just like the whole time it was just bad. Or like on A, for example, it'd be like, yeah, let's just go A, and they just contact through bathroom. Like there was like just no plan. And this is what I think is the plan. But then you can see Dano Eklar, bearing in mind like those guys, like I like their star player is a guy called Detour as well. He's like a 19-year-old, like just cracked dude, more or less. And then they got this Orpa called Capson as well, another serious talent.
He's been around forever.
Yeah, he's a serious guy. He's so good though, and he keeps he like proved it domestically, and now of course they're finally starting to get kind of the respect internationally. But yeah, you can kind of see the difference, because they've got very new, like the updated meta in terms of they've got an idea how they're going to go about it, faking, going for their executes. The utility usage is perfect. They're playing off trays. They're playing off the back of crossfires. All of this great stuff. But then you've got eyeballers who, I mean, it's very clear that they're playing the same game style Fnatic probably played in 2014. Like, it just isn't. It isn't there by any means. So, I don't know. I think to be perfectly honest, I think they need a new IGL, and I think they need a young IGL who actually understands the game from an updated center point. And even if you keep I'd probably honestly drop Flusher, it's probably the one I'd go for, and keep JW, but then bring in an IGL. Don't let JW call. Don't let him even have any sort of interactions. And I think they got a slap coaching as well. I mean, he's been around since like I was a boy, basically. So it's again another guy who's part of this very old meta, outdated play style. I think that needs to change, to be perfectly honest. I think that's been the biggest thing that lets me down.
I've seen that firsthand as well. In some of the games they've done, they had I think it was a 7-loss streak on Mirage. They would have good CT sides, but they would occasionally be in situations where they would be up 13-2 and still struggle to win. And I genuinely have seen that multiple times. So it says a lot about their T sides, and I completely agree with that. But I think your next team is ex-Skade, of course. And honestly, I kind of agree with you on that one as well, because I agree with you more on this one than I do with Eyeballers, because this team has only been plummeting. They were the gatekeepers at the top of tier 2 for a really long time, this Skade roster. They were great. I've cast them so many times to make the final of these Pinnacle Cups and these Tier 2 EU tournaments. They've been fantastic, but now I think ever since, I really think the IGL thing of Bubble, I think, is now starting to fall off now. People are starting to really know what they're made of. They had an incredible streak of incredible overpasses in a row back in like mid last year and early this year as well. They're like 8 in a row, 9 in a row, 10 in a row, even double digits on that map, how good they were. But now they can't even rely on that anymore, and I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I think for me... Oh, yeah, pardon, take it away. I can talk about my points after.
Yeah, sure. I think that Ships doesn't have nearly as much impact as he used to have. He was touted as one of the biggest talents in Bulgaria for quite a while. We saw flashes of it on Contact. We saw flashes of it throughout his career when he was playing internationally. But at this point in his career, it's like you have this expectation. You've gone through the whole IGL thing. Well, I don't remember which team it was under, but he was IGLing for quite some time, right? Actually, I think it was under Skade before they actually like reassembled to make this team.
Yes, I think you're right. Came together, basically.
Yeah,
right.
Skade, he tried IGLing for a bit and it didn't really work out. Yeah.
And ever since that IGL like switch over and now it's back to Bubble, like he looks like a shadow of himself. Like I don't think that we nearly have that kind of explosive star power from him anymore, and then that means you're relying on Denislaw a little bit more, and I don't think that you should be relying on him on a roster like this anyways, and obviously losing the organization is going to be a huge hit, just to the mentality of some of these players, that they're just not going to be going as deep in tournaments anymore when you kind of have that thing looming in the back of your head that you're playing for the prize money now. Like the prize money is so much more important now that you don't have that salary in the back of your head. So I think that it's time to call it quits and kind of sell these pieces and put them in other systems, because it looks like that Fiend roster that was probably the best Bulgarian roster that we had for quite some time. I don't think they understood what good they had until it was gone, and now they are kind of in a scenario where they have to play with pots and pans no matter which roster you look at. All of them are kind of,
wasn't it? Mm-hmm. That major qualifying game against Copenhagen Flames, that changed everything. If they won that, they would have made the major and got stickers, and who knows how long it would have gone on for.
Exactly, right.
I think that's actually my main point about why I think the Skade roster's really started to fall in the bin. As I think the second Skade and Fiend make this decision to join forces or like come together, and that's when it fell apart, because. Well, realistically, they picked up the wrong people. Like, that was beyond no. First of all, dropping Oxygen never made sense to me. He was one of their most impactful players, and he's 18 years of age. He's the future of Bulgarian CSGO in my eyes. And when Skade were farming for a long time, he was the one who continuously impressed me. Oxygen was the one I always loved. I thought this guy was ridiculously talented. Then, of course, on top of that, they don't pick up Red Star. And it's like, in Fiend, Red Star was the difference maker. Red Star was one who did it. I know apparently he's pretty toxic. Apparently he's not the easiest player to work with, but he's that good that surely you try and incorporate him into this team. And then it was like kind of the players they picked up around him as well. It was like I think it was like Kaluba was for a while who was playing, and he really wasn't that great. And they had a couple of people who they trialed, but again, wasn't fantastic. I know Mar came in for a little bit, wasn't brilliant. Ships was one of the kind of the bright stars in this roster, to be perfectly honest. But even still now, he really hasn't kind of refound that form from old Contact, then early Skade days. So all things good, I'm really I'm really not impressed with kind of Skade. And you kind of spot on in terms of they were the gatekeepers. They were in. So the thing why I love Skade, because they were like the king of the grind. Skade in 2021 was where Skade they were the best. They had more maps played than any other team in the world. They had. So I got this up. They have 429 maps played in the entire 2021, which is fucking ridiculous. They had more maps played than days in the year. That is insane. They played 11,570 rounds of CSGO. 263 of them were wins and 166 losses. They had a really, really good 2021. I mean, this was a side that was set up for serious success. They were, I can't remember exactly what their peak was, but I know it was like 19th or like, just inside of that kind of top 20 for a long time. They were just seriously good. So I'm really sad to kind of see how this side's fallen off, because when you look towards kind of tier 2, especially at the end of 2021, about the 3 teams that were really kicking off, really doing the best, it was Skade, Entropic, Copenhagen Flames. And Copenhagen Flames, or the core of Copenhagen Flames, and those players have all gone on to do bigger and better things now, all cemented towards tier 1 the way we knew they would. They had top 8 finishes at a major, deservedly so. Entropic, okay, granted, haven't quite hit the same heights, but they still are cemented. Just, top of tier 2 still, tier 1.5 arguably, and Skade have plummeted. They can't beat anybody. They literally are getting rolled over left, right, and center by the most, not to be offensive, but no-name teams. It's time for this side to go on. Like, it's done now. They need to.
Now they've lost their org. Now they've lost Skade's backing. It has to be. Yeah, they're going to be moving on. No doubt.
Skade came out and said, like, we didn't drop them because of performance-related issues. Apparently, it was something to do that they didn't agree on contracts. But even if Skade had come out and said we did drop them on performance, I'd be like, fair play. Like, I mean, it makes absolute
correct
sense.
Decision.
With the money that, so like, obviously Skade's it's an Norwegian org, if I'm right in saying, and I'm pretty sure it's got a lot of money behind it, but they were just burning cash on this Bulgarian roster who weren't performing. They weren't even like qualifying for tier 2 tournaments, not even competing. They weren't qualifying for them, which was the rough bit. At least in the latter part of 2021 or the early part of 2022, they were still competing in these tier 2 tournaments. Talk about kind of the CCT circuit before, when it's like relog, like Pinnacle Cups and Snow Sweet Snow and Full Sweet, whatever the fuck it was called. Those ones.
They won a couple of them.
Yeah, they won a couple of them. Always in them. They were in every single one because they always qualified, or for the most part, they're actually more normally invited because of how good their reputation was in the scene. Now they're so rough that they barely even get invited. Even when they do, you look at them compared to the rest of the talent that gets invited in, you're like, well, they're just going to get rolled. Like, they're not even going to compete. So I think even if Skade had come out and said, like, oh yeah, we did drop them for performance, fair play. I think it's absolutely spot on. Yeah, I'd do the same thing if I was the GM, because there's 100 other teams that I would pick up that I think have at least more potential or consistency than this side. So that's my low light. But I think we have a joint low light as the third one, which I think is a very interesting topic to talk about, which is, of course, Apex. So I'll get up the tweet that Apex released, which was Apex came out, and this was yesterday as of the down recordings. This was yesterday on the 26th. They said they're withdrawing from ESL Advanced Playoffs. Due to our current state, we've decided to withdraw from the main CS team from all competitions. Our results have been far from good enough, and we need time to reflect and evaluate how we feel ready. Who wants to take the floor with this one? I've got many opinions, but I can let someone kickstart things.
I'll just start with saying one thing is the fact that I just love the players on this team, full stop, and I really enjoy this team. But I think it's weird to pull out from the upper bracket. If you're in the lower bracket, then fine. Say, okay, enough is enough, and we probably won't make it through to the next stage of maybe Challenger League or relegation or whatever it is at the end of this season. But like, they pulled that from the upper bracket. Sure, they've been struggling, but I still think stick with it and maybe finish it off. But I think maybe a bit of burnout is there from the travel to Philadelphia. I don't know. They've been playing a lot of games online. I think maybe they're not sure on the IGL. I remember on that Philadelphia stream, which apparently, side note, apparently Apex weren't happy with a lot of the things that went on that Philadelphia stream. They sort of weren't happy with them just sort of being on it full stop and saying some things. Like Sticker was being very honest, open, like we want players to be. Exactly. But I don't think Apex are really happy about that, unfortunately. And Sticker was talking about, oh well, I've done some IGLing. Shox is doing some IGLing, but it's not really working. We're trying to work it out. But yeah, so that's really my opinion. Is that for now, it's a shame, but I agree with the decision. But also, why pull out of the upper bracket? I think play it out first.
Yeah, just wait a couple of days, right? I mean, like, realistically speaking, if you look at the upper bracket of Advanced, there's some pretty stonking teams there. On the current form, they're not going to win, right? They're not, or most likely case, unless something magical happens. Why not just play 1 or 2 and just kind of, really, cement what the problems are, and then when they're, no longer making it through into the next stage, then have a conversation. I tweet about that. I say, why the end of bracket? What's the point? And I got replied a kind of a tweet from JL saying, just a shit show from us at Apex. Sorry to all the fans. It's a circus, basically. But yeah, Paladin, feel free.
It's just like really brutal. When you could have at least, I think. One best of 3 would put them in like pole position to qualify for at least relegation.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is just brutal, as you guys are saying. I mean, I believe in the previous iteration of this lineup, a very similar situation happened when they were like in advanced, and then they were like, oh yeah, this like advanced run is like our last run as a 5-man unit, and then we're going to disband or like rebuild or whatnot, and we're gonna get back to it. And that it's just really odd. So I'm sure it's something internal because not playing it out has to mean internal. I think they are still better than a majority of these teams, and they probably would have qualified for at least relegation.
Yeah.
And I think the main issue that I have with this roster is that I don't think Apex should continue with Stiko as the IGL.
That's it.
However, I do think that Stiko is a fantastic player. I think that he's a very cerebral player. I mean, I talked to Devilwalk and he could not stop singing the praises of Stiko from the FPX days. He says the guy puts in so much work. The guy is so willing to learn and play the game, and you can see that. I mean, throughout his career, he's always willing to take the shit roles and play just stat poor roles, and he would still do very well. He would still continuously do it. And playing those supportive roles, you can kind of understand that, hey, maybe I can IGL very similar to a Taco. And although that conversion couldn't actually happen, I think they should still keep him on and keep him in certain difficult roles because I think he could still do it well. You slot him into whatever Shox is doing. I don't think Shox has what it takes to play in an international lineup. Maybe you put him in a French roster. And then you try to bring in a dedicated IGL that isn't a Cillian and isn't tried to kind of be wishy-washy with Stiko. I think Cube can do very well with bringing up an IGL. He did it with Mad Lions. TMB wasn't known to be an IGL, but still he looked pretty good. I think he still I think he can scout out a decent player here or there to make this team look much better because I don't think that Stiko is cut out to be an IGL, but I still think he's got a lot to give.
I agree. I think that's another reason. I think he realizes that himself, Stiko, from what I've heard him say in separate things. Shox has been doing quite a lot of it, from what I understand, and I think that's really hurting. We saw him. It was confirmed, wasn't it, by Liquid when he was on Liquid that he was calling quite a lot of the pistol rounds Shox and doing some of those sort of mid rounding, maybe helping often and about with that. But I think, as you say, calling in English and just communicating in English and then being the IGL as well, I think is really hurting his individual. I do believe he's been doing quite a lot of the IGLing, quite actually majority of it recently. And as you mentioned with the flex IGLing between JW and Flusher, you can't really do it between Sticker and Shox either, I don't think. It's just not the way to go. Don't get me wrong, I love Shox, but I really do think that a French team is the better way to go for him at some point if he wants to continue on his career. I think this was a nice experiment. I still think they're going to maybe stick with him for a little while longer. I very much doubt they'll drop him. But even like during the Fragadelphia streams and the Beardadelphia, like he just looked so tired, didn't he? He looked tired and a bit. He was. Makes me wonder whether he's on his last legs when it comes to competing professionally, because his body language didn't look like he was enjoying any of it whatsoever. Last time I've seen him enjoy Counter-Strike was on Vitality, so it's a rough one for him because I love the guy and he's just naturally hilarious as well. Whenever you listen to him talk, he's just an absolute character. So yeah, I think IGLing is not going to work for him. With the roster as a whole, as a Bubsky tweet that maybe you can pull up, that
get that one off for us.
he mentioned about possible changes to fix this roster. I looked at it the other day as well and thought it was a pretty decent idea. But yeah, really the main star is Jacob, and if he's motivated and they can keep him with a good clutch player in Stiko, and with JL as well, who's genuinely good, I think that's a core you can work around for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, my first of all, as a 3, we predicted this literally like 2 weeks ago. We were already saying about how, I was saying is like in my kind of low light thing about Fragadelphia, about how they didn't win it. Like that was already slightly wrong. I know you can take whatever you want away from it, but I could see there was some warning signs there. Like, they'll go into Fragadelphia where on paper they are well and by far the best team there, and they really didn't look it. Even when they won, it was still kind of all over the place. But from what I've seen from them, I've not been impressed. I watched them in the RMR as well. It was pretty grim. For me, I think it's clear to see now that Shox needs to not IGL. Just generally, your spot on there. He's 0 for 2. Did it in Liquid, didn't work. Now trying it kind of here, and again, not working. For Apex, they've got great pieces individually. I think as a roster, it's just not working. I always didn't really like the pickup of Shox. As much as I like him as a person, I thought I would have liked to have seen them go for a kind of, honestly, a cheaper, younger option of someone who can come in and cause some issues. And IGLing is probably one of those ones that potentially could have been the addition there, because I don't like the Stiko IGL either. As much as I like him as a player, I think he needs to focus on his rifling and focus on him as a as a great fragger and support player and all of the good stuff that you expect him to, and allow the IGLing to be on the back of someone else. But unfortunately, the project's not worked out, of course. So Bobsky said, my 2 cents, Nork, JL, minus Shocks plus Buzz, minus Steeko plus Manx, who's going to be IGLing, minus Jacob plus Cypher, and then keep Jacob if he's motivated, plus Cypher
you know what?
/Blitz.
You know what? Actually, the call of Manx is actually a really good one, because Ecstatic, after they lost the players that they did, they've actually been a lot better than I thought with Manx IGLing. Manx has really impressed me with how he's brought these, basically the Masonic core, really, is what it is.
Yeah.
And he's brought them up to competing at the RMR, and I do expect them to get whipped, but still, I think Manx has done quite a good job. So that call to try and make him an IGL with some better players around him could be a decent shout. To be fair,
I spoke to Wolfie not too long ago. Of course, the ex-Ecstatic Orban, and I got an interview coming out at some point. I think not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday afterwards of this being released. But I spoke to him, and he was saying Manx is one of the best players to ever play with, just because of what he can bring to the server, and he's very, very cerebral. Like, he's very aware. He knows what he's looking at. He knows the breakdown games. So I agree. I think the Manx IGL call is good. Buzz, I also agree with. I really think minus Shocks is a necessity. As much as people can make arguments, he's tier 1, whatever, I don't think he can play in an international roster or at the level that Apex are wanting to play now. I just think, in my personal opinion, I don't think he's right for this team. The only one I heavily, heavily disagree with is minus Jacob. I think that's moronic. I think that's just completely crazy for me. Like, I don't even get where that's coming from, because Jacob is, for me, what makes this team so special. I mean, Jacob, if he's playing the roles he wants to play, which is very free as a rifler, free roaming, letting him do what he wants, Jacob's the difference maker, and he always has been the difference maker. This is what has made Apex actually a competent roster, because for a lot of the time as well, when they would struggle, it wasn't Nork or obviously prior to jail and then that previous iteration of roster. It wasn't the likes of the Norks, the Steekos, or whatever who was stepping up. It was always Jacob. It was always Jacob pulling them across the line. So for me, I think minus Jacob's like pretty wild, to be perfectly honest. But if I was going to keep this roster, Nork, JL, Jacob, I think those 3 are fine. Minus Steeko maybe if you're going to bring in Manx to IGL, and I think Buzz is a really good pickup. Especially when I spoke to Devorborg not too long ago, and he said if he was going to rebuild the Copenhagen Flames roster just before he joined EG, Buzz would be the first name on his list. So, if someone like Devorborg, who I really respect as a person, I think he's very smart. Also, he knows that scene 10 times better than I do. If he's saying, Buzz is probably one of the first names on that list that he's going to, I believe him. I think Buzz is a pretty good pickup. I mean, I've seen him do some decent work. I haven't watched too much of him, to be perfectly honest, but I've seen him every now and again, tuned into a game, and he always seems to be putting out some decent stats, putting out some decent work. Everybody in the scene domestically really respects him and really, really highly rates him. So if it's conclusively multiple people saying Buzz is great, Buzz really knows what he's doing, pick up Buzz, he can go tier 1, he's got like kind of the work ethic and he's got the ability and the skill ceiling or whatever to go tier 1, I believe them. So
that's it.
I think basically I agree with all of that, aside from minus Jacob, which I heavily disagree with, because personally for me, I would build around Jacob. I think Jacob is the thing that makes this side special, but who knows what happens next to Apex? I don't think anyone really knows. I don't think they even know. There's definitely some internal problems where, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't be surprised if the next time we see them, it's a completely different roster in terms of there's definitely changes. I think the Steeko Shocks one, I for me, feels like that's just happening now. I feel like, as much as obviously, Bugsy does it here, but I think a lot of people kind of agree with it. I would be very surprised if we don't see them go. The only thing also why I don't think Apex won't drop Jacob is because their owners, this like super rich Norwegian lady from Norwegian, and there's no way they're dropping.
They're Norwegian, and they want a Norwegian player,
no
and Jacob's been the leader of Norwegian Counter-Strike for however long.
The whole point of the project as well was to build around Jacob. Like I think Jacob could have like no arms and was playing with his tongue, and they let him play. Like there's no way that they're dropping Jacob. Even if he has a bad performance, which he barely ever does as well, because he's actually still a very good player. They're not dropping Jacob. I can't see that happening, to be perfectly honest. One thing to mention though, I don't know if you guys have any insight, but I don't actually know too much about Blitz.
Blitz is the Eclot player, correct?
Is that the one they're on about? Cause I was thinking, I don't know if they're talking about.
Are you thinking the Romanian guy?
Yeah,
the Romanian player.
Oh, sorry, that's Enterprise. That's
Enterprise, right? Yeah.
They're both red logos. But yeah, this guy's actually pretty good. I liked watching. From whatever I watched, Enterprise, it was him and it was a Harn.
Yeah,
right?
oh, yeah.
Harn's the other
Harn's
player,
Han
Farming
from Fiend.
Warfare. Yeah.
Han from Fiend, yeah.
That boy's
Blitz is
good.
just another
Yeah.
one of these Romanian players that I really think can make a name for himself in the sort of like at a Sprout level team, you know, because where Lanx is, I think he is basically just as good as Lanx for me.
Nice.
Not maybe just yet, but I think
Getting there.
Romanian talent is really getting there to a level where we're going to see players like him maybe one day.
Even like
They're
a Regali
very
level.
very young. Yeah, they're ridiculously young, and I've always said that if Lanx gets some more LAN experience under his belt, I think he can be like a future phase player in like 3 years or
100%.
something.
The caliber of talent coming out of that scene is ridiculous when you think about it now. There's some of those names coming through. Obviously, Lanx is making a name for himself recently. Regali, of course, has been making a name for a little while.
Zello back on Nexus now,
up.
but
But even when he was kind of dotted here and there everywhere, he was still doing well. When he filled the gap of Wolfie at Ecstatic, he was actually pretty decent. I don't think it's big boost to fill, and I think he actually did alright, to be very honest. Romania, I think, is silently becoming one of those scenes that's producing some serious talent. So I credit to them. I think we can quite nicely.
We can move on to a bit of a funnier one now, can we?
A very funny one. This one is very recent, but I think brought a bit of a chuckle to a lot of people who saw it. Right, I'll read the tweets, right, so we all kind of know where we stand. So s1mple tweeted, "Hey ESL, wake up and tell your employees to remember what professionalism is. Terrible communication with the teams and with this shit hotel." And then someone replied, "Nowadays you always complain," which I think is just brilliant. Like, just a reply. Someone from football Twitter, an Arsenal fan, replying that, which is just brilliant. Ironic as well, Arsenal fans complaining, but hey ho. And he was like, "Dude, I don't complain, but I woke up with ants in my bed and look at the mold on this 4-star hotel." And then, of course, there's the picture of the mold, which, to be fair, looks pretty grim. Thoughts, boys? Moldgate. s1mple Moldgate. This is what I was referring to earlier when I said, like, s1mple and Navi aren't going to play well because Moldgate's going to affect him.
I don't know, man. It's just another one of these messes where social media is, like, enlarging the situation. s1mple should be talking to people privately about this rather than tweeting about it. Like, he should be talking to the hotel manager, he should be talking to ESL, which I'm sure he did, but still. And then now it's just like fell away into a fight between the two of them through their own socials. And this loveandmalta.com article, which where they refer to s1mple as a gamer, which is obviously true, but also
they mean it
adds to a stereotype.
Sense. Yeah.
It adds to a stereotype, yeah. And it says, hotel management told Love in Malta that s1mple checked into the hotel on the 19th of August and spent 21 days with a do not disturb sign hanging on his doorknob, and it got to a point where the hotel was leaving linens outside of his door and sent him a letter asking him to allow him to clean his room. To this, he not only refused, but went to tell staff not to enter his room under any circumstance. Like, if that's true, that's just s1mple being a bit of a bitch for no reason.
Yeah, if that's true, that's your own fault. You've not had your room cleaned in a month.
Yeah, but if the mold was already there, they should have also checked it. So there's they're both in the wrong, really. And no one can come out of this good, is my opinion.
That picture of that mold made me think that it's coming from within the vent and not out of the vent. So I don't. That's the only speculation I'm gonna do. I think that the picture of the mold is pretty damning as far as the hotel is concerned, because that is unacceptable. I don't think you should ever have mold in your hotel, like in any scenario. And I think there has to be blame put on them. I don't like the article because it's like, again, why didn't you just talk to this guy? Like, why didn't you send a phone call via the hotel phones? Like, there are so many other things that you could have done. You could have talked to Navi, the organization. You could have talked to ESL or something instead of going on and putting an article about this. Like, it's just, I don't know. I think everybody handled this very poorly. I don't think this is gonna affect s1mple whatsoever. I think that he is enough of a champion for none of it to happen. He's been through so much hell in the recent months, and he's come off completely fine in terms of his in-server play. And I think that it shouldn't affect Navi's performance, but I think that this is not ever going to be fun for anybody involved having to deal with this
I think, to be honest,
situation.
It's like, for me, I just wonder what the communication is going on there, because I mean, we've all worked international gigs now at VSL, and they've for the most part, the hotels they put us in are nice, and I know for a fact the hotels they put players in are much nicer.
100%.
And we get nice hotels. I mean, the one that kind of we've all stayed in near the studio in Stockholm. Nice. It's a very nice hotel, and everyone who works here is lovely. A massive shout out as well. I actually don't remember the guy's name, but I was thinking about this earlier. The dude at the desk who was working the graveyard shift when we were doing the Melbourne gig. He was the loveliest.
You know
dude.
what? I had to ask him because I'm type 1 diabetic, right?
Yeah.
So I need a fridge in my room for my insulin just in case and stuff like that. I didn't have a fridge in my room. So that's one thing that obviously very clearly they have a fridge at reception, don't they? So I was like, mate, could you mind if you just put my little like cool bag with my insulin at the back? He's like, yeah, sure, mate, don't worry about it. And I would come back in the morning and say, can I have my bag, please? Like, yes, don't worry, mate. Here you go. Like, he's a lovely guy. Like, so, a huge rep.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, you know, for the most part, and also from our side as well, you know, ESL are always very communicative with us. They give us everything, you know, weeks in or a couple of weeks in advance before we go out for the gigs. We know exactly where we're staying, and you know, like, if there's ever an issue, it's so easy to kind of be able to say to them, okay, you know, I've got this problem or whatever. Like, I know, for example, it wasn't me, but someone else, none of their plug sockets worked in their room, right? It was for some reason all the plug sockets didn't work. And you can reach out and they get it sorted immediately. So, like, I mean, the only thing that questions me is, like, kind of, if there's this problem, why is this just immediately gone public? You know, surely you reach out to ESL and be like, okay, you know, I've got this issue, there's mold in my room, I want a room change. And ESL will be like, yeah, of course. Like, they're not gonna be like, no. Or if they are like, no, okay, then that's obviously a much bigger issue. But that's definitely, that didn't happen. So I don't really understand kind of what was the process here in terms of leading to him immediately. I don't know if he just immediately went public, and if he did, that's kind of very diva of him. You know, if he didn't go to ESL and ask for, you know, hey, my room's got my mold in it, maybe the hotel, you know, haven't done anything about it, so you reach out to ESL to kind of, you know, push them onto it. But he's gone immediately public. If he has gone immediately public, I hope it's for the fact that because he's gone to the hotel and said, I've got mold in my room, fix it, and they've not done anything. Then he's gone to ESL and be like, I've got mold in my room, hotel's not fixing it, force them to fix it, and then the ESL have palmed them off, which seems extremely unlikely. So it just seems like he's just gone public immediately without actually asking for help. On the other side, though, if it's true that he's stayed in his room since the 19th of August, bear in mind, it's like, this tweet was on the 26th, I'm pretty sure, or 25th of September. So, you know, it's over a month, and he's not cleaned his room, or not had room service in once. It's your own damn fault.
That's a bit silly.
You smelly boy.
That's definitely silly, but I would say that maybe it's kind of a bit of a war of words now. They're just trying to win the battle, I think, the hotel. But what I will say as well is that I think plainly people are just wired differently in terms of how to complain, right? It's as simple as that. For me, I would just, you know, do it silently and respectfully. But some people are like, oh, I have this big following on Twitter, I want to make it clear that this shit sucks, and I want to.
I hate that though. I hate
ruin this hotel.
Like, that pisses me off. I hope you all hold me accountable for this. Like, if I ever did get, like, you know, obviously not S1mple Mould famous, but if I ever got, like, some sort of a following which was, you know, worth talking about, and I would leverage my followers against, you know, people who are paying for my hotel
I'm not that kind of person.
Like,
I'm not that kind of person to be confrontational. I would never do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the meme bit out of the way.
Yeah. What we can't talk about, though, of course, is RMR's coming up. But by the time our next episode comes out, RMR's would have already started and finished. In fact, we actually would know who's going to the major. So very interesting times. And I guess this can segue quite nicely into what is going to be sort of my weird, slight kind of ish segment. I guess it's like it's sort of a spin-off of the podcast, more or less. But with actually the help of DatPaldin, because I don't really know how to kind of do this video, but he kind of gave me some tips. But essentially, there's a video that will be coming out on the Tuesday the 4th. So literally the Tuesday after when this is uploaded, which will be myself, TravPaldin, and a bunch of other cast analysts. And I think the ones we got locked in so far is Yumi, Scriv, Tom Pickering, Lucy, Brandon, and I might forget anyone else. I don't think I am. Oh yes, I am. The Aussie boys, Elfish guy and Conky. Also coming in as well. So because I feel like that region needs some representation, right? So
good stuff.
But so I'm bringing them in as well. So and the plan is with this sort of video that I'm going with, which will be coming out on Tuesday the 4th. So, you know, if you're not already, just make sure to subscribe. You know, all the good stuff. But it basically I'm doing like a sports table of a points based system on how many predictions people gets right. So I made some tier lists, which I'll also probably link below the video when the video's out. But I made some tier lists for the EU RMR, the NA RMR, or the Americas RMR, and the Asia RMR, and I'm gonna make people predict of kind of who's qualifying, 3-0 all the way through. Let's say it's EU, for example. Who's going 3-0 all the way through? Actually, I can get it up. In fact, I can get up this tier list so you can understand sort of how exactly it works. But essentially, we can kind of not make one, but understand how this whole thing's gonna work. So these sort of here we go. So who's going 3-0? Who qualifies? So just standard qualifies. Close but no cigar. I think pretty self-explanatory. And 0-3 bombs out. And the whole point is that for everything that you get right, you get a point based off of it, and at the end it'll be like a bit of a bragging rights thing, and there'll be like some sort of like jokingly kind of Twitter post coming through, and of course I'll release this for people to kind of do their own as well, which it'll be quite interesting to see how many people can get stuff right, because it's kind of like the pick'ems coin for major, but before the majors actually started. And I think even though there is going to be pick'ems, I might even do this again for the major with like all of us and like some casters and analysts, but on like a much bigger scale, increase it to like 20-25 people, and do part 2 of this video, which is my initial plan right now. But this is kind of the grand scheme of things, but it's like the diamond pick and coin. But
looking forward to it, because obviously there's lots of different caveats, right? I mean, they've got teams that we might not even know will make it, which we can go on to in a second, like with Benched Heroes. You've got teams like Astralis who are having issues, we've already gone over. Teams that might shock. I mean, I'll give you a little hint as to one of my sort of surprising opinions, is the fact that I think Eternal Fire are going to make it over BNE, which is surprising.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think for that, and I picked because I was forced to go, because in the EU one, we need 4 teams that go 3-0 and 4 teams that go 0-3. I wanted to get confirmed, as we do in our actual like Valve CS:GO pick'ems, want to confirm points for like maybe the teams that actually qualify. So I actually went for a risky one of Fnatic going 3-0, and some of the teams like Vitality and Cloud9 just qualifying.
This
so
is why I did
we'll see.
It's playing the smart game, right? The only thing is though, because
Can you give me a point? Can you give me a point if they actually go through, but 3 points if it's dead on or something?
No,
something cool to make it.
So this is how I'm doing it. I'm doing it like cutthroat, basically. So like, let's say you put Fnatic 3-0, but they go, I don't know, 3-1 or whatever. They get through, but they don't go, straight away through. Obviously, you don't get the point for it. That's the way I'm doing it. Kind of similar to the Diamond Pick'em, because it also kind of forces you to really think about how you want to justify it. Do you kind of play, like, I know for myself personally, when I would do like the Diamond Pick'ems, or the Pick'ems coins for majors, I always went down the safe route, like all the time. Like I've got all the Diamond Pick'ems apart from Antwerp, where I went Na'Vi to win it, and of course FaZe ended up winning it. But so. For me, I always play the sort of the safe route. So but this is kind of why I want to do this video, because I feel like it's going to force people to really think. And then of course the part how the video is going to work is I'm going to pull you all in for a call one by one, and I'm going to get you to explain your picks basically, and just put
quick fire.
Put your money where your mouth is, basically. Your analysts, your casters, you paid the big bucks to be, a respectable opinion in the scene. So now you get pitched up against each other. It creates a little bit of competition. That's what I'm going with here anyway. So that should be pretty funny. And of course, if I get to beat any of you two, like I'm gonna absolutely abuse you basically. So.
Never hear the end of it. It'll be on the broadcast. It'll be in every little group call that you ever have with this guy.
It'll be pinned. It'll be pinned on Discord. It'll be everywhere.
I love it. Pinned on Twitter, like first thing.
Every reply tweet to anything you ever tweet out.
just screenshot that. Ooh. But that actually does kind of segue into our next one quite nice though, which is some quite recent in terms of as of literally today, important news. Benched Heroes are no longer going to the major. They're no longer going to the RMR. So that was my icon for Benched Heroes. Obviously, they don't have a logo, so I just put a bench. But I did actually make this, so that's why it's very scuffed. But this is the tweet, of course. Smooya, who's been tweeting like a 14-year-old who went through his first breakup. Blacked out his profile as well. Love it. It's like fantastic stuff. But he did GG best of luck Illumina. Do you know, fair, like, you can have your opinions about Benched Heroes. I mean, I personally don't think they were going to do anything at the RMR. I don't think they were going to be competitive, to be perfectly honest. But you know, credit to them that they qualified. They deserve to be there, and for them not to go, which is it's out of their hands because they couldn't go because of visa issues. I feel for them in that sense because it's actually really not their fault. I do have to say that this is obviously just my opinion. I do think the kind of like the sort of emo tweeting was quite funny. Like I just think like it was like you know, updates every 5 minutes basically, like and the blacked out profile is quite funny as well.
Listen, that's definitely amusing. I completely agree with you. That is quite a funny factor of it, but at the same time you've got to feel bad for the players on the team. I mean, like Smuya is like, you know, he's already had his international scene experience. He's been at Cologne in Cologne finals and stuff like that. Like it's whatever. For him to come back, he's done it all before on the big stage. For the younger players, on Care, like I think he had to pull out, couldn't get a visa
as well.
Yeah.
Like
Fear has the same sort of issue. Alex couldn't get a visa even though he was only very recently on Eternal Fire. So that's Turkey's visa issues coming back to haunt him as well. Yeah. So it's a nightmare for those guys, and I feel bad for them especially. I mean, who obviously had a chance again to maybe get back onto the scene and do something too, and then he's been sort of cancelled out. And we get the replacement of Illumina, and of course now can sort of move on to the announcement tweet that ESL put out, and what they're doing in case they need more replacement teams. And Paladin, maybe you can have a little bit of a talk about those teams that actually made it through, because I don't like this. I'm not a huge fan of this little setup that they've done. Like, why call everyone from the last Open Qualifier? I think there were better teams that they could have called upon. Don't you think?
Yeah, you could have given so many more opportunities out to so many other teams. Like, we know how many fell through the cracks, like at that very like close threshold, that best of 3 threshold. And you could have literally just made a gauntlet, and you could have just had that happen with maybe like 8 to 16 teams, and you might have just made it open IP again and just cast and let random people cast through it. You don't even have to do production for it if you don't want to. You just set it up and let the games begin, so to speak. But this is going to be like an issue because, I mean, now we're having visa issues with potential Russian players as well, and we might have hamstrung teams. Like, you don't want one win without Deco. You really don't, because that team could potentially do something. Like, there's a potential where they spoil a top team's day and kind of makes the entire Swiss stage just broken open because of the Buchholz system. Like, there's so many opportunities for things like that to happen. And now, I mean, with how these visa things have been kind of been in a really sticky situation, I mean, I'm kind of bummed out that basically all fear for these teams that kind of were on the fringe of getting upset is now slowly going away. And I want some of these teams to be tested. Like, I think the RMRs are such an exciting concept because you do have basically the next and upcoming teams from Europe to compete against the top dogs, or maybe like there's the CIS mixes that always surprise. And then even in the America situation, you've got teams that finally have land time in bigger stages, like even in Asia as well. But I think the biggest issue is that now that you don't even have those teams actually bringing in their full fives, now you look at these predictions and it sucks because you kind of, it's kind of one-sided. You already have a fringe set of teams. Maybe you can say like OG, Big, Ents, like those teams that might not make it if there was a good strong team. But now if they don't have the full five, you can kind of just say, look, there really isn't any question that they should be a shoo-in at this point. And it just, at a competitive level, it's just brutal. And especially if the way they're going to replace these teams be the last open qualifier, which is objectively the weakest set of teams that made it to the BO3 section, we're going to have just like a very meh time of things, and it doesn't really matter.
The only thing for me with this is, I don't know if you guys can clear this one up, but it's like, okay, so there's what, eight teams, isn't it, right? Like, roughly from that round of 16 or something like that. So
where's the tweet that I put? I'll find the tweet.
I've got yours. In order to determine and replace, we'll be reaching out to the 8 teams who lost in round 16. These are Blue Jay, Sashi, Finest, Anonymo, 9 Pandas, Tag, XDDD, and P2N, right? So they're the teams. So yeah, all of you spot on with, like, you know, this is a pretty rough lot of teams. Like, I don't really see.
I want to see Finest and Blue Jays make it, but the others are like, what's the point for me? Like, Sashi have been quite good, I will say. Like,
actually, they were pretty good.
Shout out to Sashi, but like the others are like don't really care. No disrespect, but no disrespect, but like
but
you know.
The only thing I'm questioning is how does it work in terms of who do they select from? So let's say it's only bench heroes who don't go. Who from these lot then is the selected team?
Well, Illuminar will be the next team. That's confirmed.
So why
Illuminar lost to bench heroes. That's why they're the first replacement team.
Sure.
So this is like a just in case bracket that they're thinking of making up, I would say, because if they've lost bench heroes, they could lose one win, they could lose Monty, for example, as well. Like these mixed teams that might not have prepared visas long in advance and don't have organizational backing to sort it out for them. And that's the big issue, I would say.
It just sucks because I feel like there's better ways it's going to be done. I mean, I think even if they didn't want to go down the route of just doing another tournament in a sense, which I think is probably a smart decision, just because it's a bit long. Just to kind of obviously like they have to get ESCA to make all the servers, and it's a whole malarkey that the planning.
Oh come on! I mean, they do cash cups all the time. Like to me, that doesn't seem like
they're always planned. Like you don't actually realize all cash cups are planned minimum 3 months in advance. Like there's making and having the space to just do a server isn't as easy as that. Like I had a friend who's
but what you're doing right now is literally just making it up on the fly. Like they're doing already like 3 or 4 best of 3s, right? Like to me, there are too many Europe servers for this to not be a thing. I just feel like ESL's dropped the ball again with doing this. I think that there should have been protocols in place. I don't know.
I feel like there definitely should have been a backup plan, especially with the conflicts going on in the world right now. There definitely should have been plans, especially with the amount of kind of Russian, Ukraine players, people from that part of Europe, right? There definitely should have been backup plans. But I think just doing another open bracket, I don't think it'll work because there's so many extra factors that you don't even consider that need to be kind of made available. Like there's no way they have enough tournament admins to be able to cover across an entire span of open brackets again, who are there to just fix problems on the get-go. They had like hundreds of admins ready, or at least like a good amount of admins ready to fix any problem that happens to any servers. They got to have all these people ready and wait, tournament admins, all the people doing stuff in and out of the server on the ESCA side, making servers available. There's a lot of extras that goes in. But what I would have said is potentially that another option that rather than having just the last qualifier, which is, to be perfectly honest, not the greatest of teams, all things, is maybe just as annoying as it is, and we always kind of hinder it, have a go at it, but I think maybe could have worked in this sense, is just gone off ESL's ranking of who was in those qualifiers,
teams who didn't made
it to the round of 16 maybe in any of the qualifiers, and who's the highest ranking, because I feel like that at least, and then go off the next 8 highest ranked teams, because then at the very least, the caliber of teams you're bringing are full rosters who are actually have been competing in around the circuit here and there. Just because, I mean, having teams like XDDDD and P2N and 9 Pandas, and it's like
that's C's team, I think.
Yeah,
pretty sure.
Yeah, exactly.
9
C's
Pandas,
team was absolutely god awful on Singularity, and it's wasting everybody's time because as much as I love mixed teams making a free open qualifiers, I think it's a great story, but this isn't a case of mixed teams making a free open qualifiers and then deserving their spot. Bench heroes, they deserve their spot because they qualified, so fair play to them. I respect that, but this is a case of they didn't even qualify, but they're becoming a replacement. So I would have preferred them to just go off ESL ranking and maybe just go top 8 next teams.
There would have been
ranking.
an absolute uproar if that was the case, because the thing is that ESL rankings heavily weight on ESL events.
Of course.
So that means that favors partner teams.
Yes.
And that in and of it, that would have been absolutely horrible.
It's worse. It's a worse way to do it. You have to go off performances from the open quals, but my point is I agree is that why only the 4th open qual? I think maybe you should go off the other open quals as well.
Across the other one. Like how do they actually do it?
Exactly.
How do they say, okay, XDD, you guys can't come in, but Apex or whoever it was, or Endpoint, for example, which I think they lost to Fnatic in the round of 16, which is, if they beat Fnatic, I think they would have qualified, right? So it's like they got so close in that sense. So teams like that, for example, it's how do they say, okay, Endpoint, you're allowed in, but 9 Pandas, mate, fuck off. It's
why they had these qualifier matches. It's why they had these decider matches, what was it, 6th to 7th place ones?
Yeah,
they were they had these for a reason to get replacement teams, but they didn't expect it for the visas to be such a huge issue that they could have 3 or 4 missing. So maybe just a little bit of lack of foresight there, but there we are. It happens. We'll get through it, and the right teams will win in the end. So
exactly,
there you go.
Exactly that. But I think regardless, whoever comes in, I can't really expect them to make too much of a difference either way. I mean, like, even if it is, you know, on top of kind of Illuminar, if there's ever need for like any more replacements, if it's like a Finest or a Anonymo or, you know, whoever. But I mean, I guess Blue Jays are pretty competitive, all things considered, but, you know, I can't really see them making too much of a difference to who's going to make it through overall. But that might affect my goddamn video, though. So, you know, fuck you, ESL. But
I put them, that's why I put them in the not applicable section.
That's what I actually might change now with this news. I might change it to Illuminar. I might actually just go and change the image from that bench.
Illuminar basically confirmed now.
Yeah,
I would say.
Exactly. So,
as long as I can make it.
Only thing I'm thinking of, just I don't know. Again, if you guys have any insight onto this, I know that they've got visa issues in abundance, right? But they registered Thomas as their sub, right? But then I heard that Thomas can't even play anyway, right? So why?
Oh, really? Because they played through an open qualifier?
No, like Thomas can't actually go or something. That's like he's not
actually free. I don't know about that.
But it's like, I don't know about that. As a sub if he can't go. But from it's 3 out of the 5 basically that have visas, right? Only Smuya and Mihu have visas, right?
Fear.
Fear.
I think Fear had one, but Oncare and Calyx didn't. And I think they were banking on Calyx getting their visa. And then they would have had a sub in, yeah.
Damn. Why does Calyx not get one? I mean,
that's what I was confused about too.
Turkey's is really hard as well.
Turkey is really difficult, but I also as I said before, like Turkey's tough, but it was surprising to me considering he's not long been off Eternal Fire. Yeah. So that's why I was confused with that.
For CS:GO, the database as a whole will know what he does for a job and know that
he's had visa trouble before. He had it on Envy as well.
He did. You're right. Very good point.
It's been a problem. Sometimes it's just the way the cookie crumbles. Like if you initially aren't having good times with visas, it's really hard to break that streak unless you have like a really promising org. They don't have org backing as well, right?
For sure.
But what can you really say? Like, oh, this is a work visa and I play for a mixed team. Like, you can't even
where's your contract? Show us your income. Show us your.
There's no really proof of text or anything whatsoever.
I think it would have actually been quite simple. They would have been like, show us your paycheck, show us, prove this is a job. And he's like, I don't know. We want to mix open qual online from my bedroom. It's like, well, okay, there's no proof here, is there? So, I mean, obviously, there's probably way more factors, but I think it's very unfortunate because they did actually, as much as people can question them or whatever, they did deserve to be there because they qualified. So, fair play. I mean, it's very unfortunate. I think the emo tweeting was quite funny, but apart from that, I do actually, I guess I got a feel for him because, he probably is pretty beat up. I mean, he's lost an opportunity to play in an RMR to get some recognition once again outside of guys, his like co-streams and stuff like that. So sad to see. But boys, that more or less wraps things up. We're gonna, of course, final things we can talk about last kind of sort of 10-ish minutes is upcoming casts we've got going. Paladin, do you want to kickstart or any work or anything you're excited for the next few weeks? It doesn't have to be work.
No, I've got some exciting plans for videos. Keep a lookout on that. We've got a very exciting season on our hands. And I might not be working a lot of these LANs, but I will be trying to create essentially the content that I would have done on these desks put into video content. So look out for that. And we'll definitely be the three of us will definitely be like interacting and being involved with the major cycle. I know you guys have got upcoming casts, but I think we could probably do some stuff together as well. Then ECL playoffs around the corner alongside the major cycle. I'll probably be involved in some circumstance in that. And
as long as the washing machines hold up.
As long as the washing machines are okay around the scene, I think we'll be okay. I'm looking forward to all the CS that we have in store, guys. Like, I mean, every single tournament that's around the corner right now has some semblance of excitement behind it. There is a lot of weight to these tournaments again. Like, I feel like we've been in a situation where you had certain tournaments that are kind of whatever, but now everything has significance, everything has meaning. And the fact that we're back to that situation in CS is super exciting. And I'm excited to get started with all that kind of stuff.
There we go. Trav, what have you offered me? What are you excited for next couple of weeks?
So I think it's tomorrow. What's the date? 27th. Yes. So tomorrow, I'll be doing as Paladin said, I'll be doing an ECL match. I believe it's Sprat versus K23 in the next group coming in, which is a pretty decent game. On the 29th, which is directly the day after, I've got 2 round of 16 playoffs for CCT, I think, which is pretty good. There's some good teams involved there. OG are in that bracket. They were invited. I'll be doing one semi-final for that. People to see, but I will be doing some of the C stream. I think RMR, I believe.
Wait, Trav,
in EU. So
big man.
Trav, don't mean to. I had to cut you off. Both your cameras and your voice just stopped literally just after you said OG. Do you want to just restart your bit, basically?
Is it back? Are we back?
Yeah, you are back. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what happened there. You stopped immediately after OG.
That's all good. All good. So there's one thing. OG is invited, and I think I finished off with saying that I'll be doing 2 round of 16 matches for CCT and then 1 semi-final as well. But the thing that I'm most excited for coming up soon is I do believe I'll be doing some C-stream stuff for the EURMR, which is very exciting. And I've actually listed out on my second monitor here. I'll announce it on Twitter, of course, no other time. This is my first time I've announced it to really anyone, I think. So exclusive, I guess. But
reward for the people watching this long into the
exactly. So I'll definitely announce it on Twitter near the time. But I've got so I have one BO3 on October 6th, which is a 0-2 elimination match. So that could be a bit of an iffy game. Maybe it's like Aurora versus Monty or something ridiculous. Now who knows? But then I've got a 2-1 qualifying match, which obviously is a sort of period where the top ranked team would go to Legends and the bottom two would be to like a 4/5 decider or whatever. And then later on in the day, there's a 1-2 elimination match, so we find out who doesn't go to the major again. And then October 8th in the evening, I have one last game, which is a 2-2 qualification elimination match. So that's going to be a big one. The loser obviously gets eliminated, and the winner makes it through to challengers, which is obviously that's going to be a big game for probably those two teams involved in that one.
Yeah, and I guess I can see things out. Stuff I'm excited for. Good question. Oh, okay. So I guess, similar thing. I haven't really announced it yet, but I also will be doing the B and C stream for EURMR.
Yes.
So pretty exciting stuff there. I've got real potential for like an unbelievably banging game. I am just trying to get it up now. So I am doing, so first day, I'm doing 2 best of 1s and a best of 3. And the best of 3 is the 2-0 game, the winners. So I think if all plays out, it's phase C9. Which is ridiculous, bro. Like, so if the favorites win on day 1, I'm doing phase C9, which is fucking in a best of 3, which is crazy.
Yeah, I've still never casted phase or Navi. I think
same.
I'm pretty sure those are the 2 teams I've never done.
Never done. I've never done phase, Navi, or G2. I haven't done any of them. So should be that should be sick. I beg they actually win their games because that'd be naughty. And then Friday I've got the 0-2 elimination game, so probably obviously not. I'm going to go from 2-0 to 0-2, and then Saturday I've got a 2-1 game and a 2-2 game. So the 2-1 game probably actually still be very decent. 2-2 game might be a little bit iffy, but either way, like some sick teams competing, and I get potentially an absolute banger of a phase C9 on the beach.
I mean, even that 2-2 game has like a bit of chips down on the table for this type of series like that. Like that allows for you to build some excitement, and a lot of eyes are going to be on it. So all 3 of those games are pretty exciting, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm pretty buzzing with that. That should be pretty exciting. I've been asked to do CCT. I think semis and finals for EU. I'm pretty sure. I haven't actually accepted yet. Well, I have accepted. I think I just haven't got the confirmation, but I've been asked to do it. So
good.
If I get confirmation, I'll do
That'd
that.
be good.
But if I don't get confirmation, I won't do that. Who knows? But it should be this news. I'm glad to see as well that OG are actually, they finally realised that the biggest problem with OG is that they just don't play any games. Like they're actually playing games now, because they can't just consistently try and compete in tier 1 without getting any experience underneath that. So thankfully they kind of figured that one out. So I'm glad to see that. Hopefully they can put up a good performance. If I'm actually casting that, who actually knows? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, they're kind of the main things I'm excited for. And of course, content for me. I mean, I'm doing that video coming out the Tuesday after this, so this is going out on Friday, the 29th? No, what day we are? I don't even know what day we are. Life all just kind of blurs.
27th.
We're on the 27th.
Tuesday 27th right now.
So Friday the 30th, this video is obviously out because you're watching it now.
Okay.
And then Tuesday the 4th is when our predictions, tier lists, competition, thingy-bob starts. And of course it starts perfectly in time with the games going on. So it should be pretty good. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But that is more or less everything done dusted, and pretty much bang on 2 hours, boys, as well. I've got to say that is pretty good timing. we've kept to a 2-hour limit, which for us is pretty decent. But I guess for now we can bid our farewells. That's what we're looking forward to. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for stopping by. Of course, you can check out our socials there below our heads, and also in the links below, all the good stuff. If you're new around here and if you've stayed for this long as well, massive thank you. I really do appreciate it. Subscribe, all of the good stuff, and until next time, we bid you farewell. We'll see you in roughly about 2 weeks. We'll try and stick to it, who knows. But thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Been a pleasure. 2.5 Talent and episode 3 done and dusted. Goodbye.